Hello and welcome to Horseplayers Happy Hour. I'm your host, Peter Thomas Fornatel. Very happy to be back with you after several weeks absent. If you're a regular viewer to this program, you will see the background has changed. No longer am I in the Brooklyn bunker, have made the trip up north to Saratoga and am at the little house on the east side, as it's known, over on the In the Money Players podcast, where you typically see me. Very happy to be joined here today in his usual abode, another member of the In the Money team, but so much more than that. You know him from the work he's done at NBC, at TVG, and on his eponymous podcast on the network. He's TV's Matt Bernier. Matt, how are you?
Pete, I'm good. It's been a few weeks, like you say. We're going to hopefully fire fresh off the layoff. Maybe we can come out with some winners. Obviously, this week has been bit of a tumultuous one. We don't need to rehash all of it, but I will just say sort of just my stance on things. Look, racing has a problem as far as inclusion and diversity is concerned. I'm not breaking any news there. If you disagree with that, I think you're either you got the blinders on or you're just ignorant to the fact. And, you know, whether it's racism, whether it's gender issues as far as male, female, trans, non-binary, whatever the case may be, racing can do a better job. We all acknowledge that it needs to be better. And I think all we can do is be respectful of everyone that's involved and hope to move this thing forward and learn from mistakes of the past. And I'll leave it at that. And hopefully we can pick some winners today.
I appreciate those words, Matt. And I know obviously our friend and colleague, Jonathan Kinch, had been wrapped up in this, and he has been buoyed by the support of the audience, folks out there watching, people such as yourself. And I'm sure he'll appreciate that as well. And it's a topic that's not going away. Somebody gave me a little stick that we had a pod about this topic earlier in the week, and we're back to business as usual. Look, it's still going to be the Players podcast, and we're talking about racing. But these issues aren't going away, and our commitment to trying to do whatever we can, even if it's just have some open communication about it, isn't going away. Not going to be every show, but obviously it's an ongoing issue, and I do appreciate you mentioning it and bringing it up in such an easy to talk about way. When you can do that about these tough topics, you're getting ahead of the game.
But I think it's just one of those things that we needed to at least just address, get it out there. And again, we all can be better, and let's hope for bigger and better going forward.
I appreciate that. I might have just blinkered it, and I'm glad to have the opportunity to talk about it here, if only for a minute. We are here, though, for charity. We are here for the Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation and the Thoroughbred Aftercare Alliance. What can you do for these charities? Well, you can donate money. The Thoroughbred Aftercare Alliance has a website. I think is it tbaftercare.com. That might be their Twitter handle. We'll get that URL for you. You can donate there directly. The TRF, our friends and partners, you can donate to them. Both these organizations doing great work rehoming racehorses when their racing days are done. Their link, I know. That one I have by heart. That's excuse me, I say that and then I blow it. trfinc.org/players. That's trfinc.org/players. We encourage people to give, especially if you happen to do something well at the windows based on some advice you've gotten on any of the free content we provide on the In the Money Network or on these shows. We do these shows in conjunction with our partner, the Breeders' Cup, and we're not just talking racing here. We're having a contest, and that contest is for folks to start their journeys to get to the Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge, the contest that I think everyone would agree is one of the top two, and many would say is the top one that's out there. So what do you do if you want to participate? You go over to horseplayers.com, you find the Horseplayers Happy Hour, you put up $20, and you do this knowing that the host site over at horseplayers.com, they're not taking. Oh, I knocked my webcam over. This is the problem. Italian Americans live streaming video dangers. You gesticulate and knock the camera over. I'll have to get that fixed better. But, so the show must go on, folks. So you pay your $20. The VIG goes to the charity, and you get a chance to come on here and join us. And hopefully, as Matt Bernier has done along the way, you win your way into tomorrow's qualifier. And then from there, you punch your ticket to the $10,000 Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge. It's no joke, folks. And I can now very proudly say throughout the course of our efforts on these shows, we have raised over $5,000 for these charities. That's just in the vig. That's not even to mention all the folks who generously given along the way. So we encourage you to do that. We encourage you, if you like our act, to follow us over at our shows on the In the Money Network. You can find everything inthemoneypodcast.com, or go to iTunes and search for In the Money Media Network. I think we'll get you there. In the Money Players Podcast, something like that. You'll find us. You'll find Matt Bernier. You'll find Naomi Tucker. You'll find Redboard Rewind with Spencer Lugenbuehl, and you'll have a very good time. Other things we're going to be talking about today include, we've got a couple of Breeders' Cup Challenge Series races this weekend. Matt and I will be sharing thoughts on those at some point, and we're going to be talking about these races that are part of the contest. We have, I don't have a Gulfstream feed up in front of me, but I'm guessing we've still got 5 or 6 minutes. If you want to go over there, please join us. Horseplayers.com. You can see it right there. We've got 7 races in this thing. Yeah, it's supposed to close at 3:09. It'll quite possibly be more like 3:15. You probably are not going to be able to handicap the heck out of these races if you haven't started. It is a pick and meaning all picks need to be in before the first contest is over. But if you want to support us, support the charity, play all the 3s, play all the 4s. It's for a good cause. Get in there and get involved. I'm hoping we're going to have a lot of participation. I've been very impressed with the amount of people playing along. Matt, are you playing in today's event?
Yeah, I am. And kind of to your point, Pete, I mean, I'm going to be brutally honest. This was a speed handicapping day for me, just kind of a little bit late to the party. Got to crank out these things. And maybe it's not the deep dive that I would normally do. But to your point, at the very least, worst case scenario, you're donating to a good cause. So take a shot. Maybe you get lucky. And look, sometimes I know I'm guilty of it in the past anyway. Paralysis by analysis, or however you want to term it, where you end up looking at so many different things. And so often it's just keep it simple, stupid. I mean, it goes back to the old math little, not analogy, what's the word I'm trying to think of? Acronym. The idea of just look at the bare bones. You know what you're doing. I mean, the same things that worked 40 years ago, there's still some elements of them that work today. So even if you're just trying to get in last second here, and like you say, Gulfstream, from what I'm seeing right now, it says 4 minutes. They're still in the paddock. It's probably going to be closer to 10. Belmont's got about 18 minutes until their first race, which is the 5th as part of this contest. You have some time. Do a quick little rundown and get involved. And like I said, at the very least, you know that you're donating to a good cause. And look, if you get lucky, got a chance. It's a little bit of a lighter field than what we're accustomed to, Pete. I mean, right now I'm looking at right around 100, which typically we're in the 130, 140 range. So maybe you don't have to deal with quite so many people in a spot like this. And again, good opportunity to take advantage.
I think that's a good point. If you're sitting there on the fence about whether to take a second entry, do it. Could be a very good opportunity. Speaking of good opportunities, we also have the Stronach 5 about ready to get underway. I don't have it laid out in front of me, but I'll look up when that starts. Definitely want to encourage players to play in that. No charity element there, but we do always talk on our shows about how horse players vote with their dollars. And if, like many a serious horse player, you've had enough of the jackpot X bet with the 50% effective takeout, a bet like the Stronach 5 that has a low takeout and no jackpot element, and something else that we applaud, the dollar minimum, this is something you want to get involved in and play. And if it's too late for this week, so be it. We understand. But it's something you want to have on your radar. The bet kicks off this week with race 6 from Laurel Park. That's going at 3:33. There'll probably be a little bit of a drag on the end of that. But just something else I wanted to throw out there. Matt, is that a pool that you participate in from time to time, the Stronach 5?
Yeah, totally. Especially when you consider, for me, one of the best opportunities, and it's not just me. I mean, it's pretty standard. The idea of a carryover. Carryovers are usually when you're going to get the most bang for your buck. You end up seeing Marshall Graham out there as far as tweeting about what the effective takeout ends up being with a carryover and all these different sorts of things. The Stronach 5, not only is it a pick 5, which is difficult enough to hit, but like you say, that dollar minimum, which I think as more and more time goes by, look, we all loved initially sort of the 50-cent pool where you can get in the 50-cent base bet and you can get a little bit more coverage. Problem is it dilutes the pool a little bit. If you end up going in with a little bit of a higher minimum, all of a sudden you can't quite spread as deep as you're going to get it cut in half how much you can spread depending on what you're going to spend on it as far as budget is concerned. So I think the opportunity for a potential carryover, the fact that it's not all at one track, I think is a nice little wrinkle. You can look around the country. It's not going to cater just to those of you that play in New York or Florida or Maryland or California. You got to be able to do a little bit of everything. And when Golden Gate's involved, you got to throw a little bit of synthetic in there for the most part. So I like the fact that it kind of keeps you guessing. It's a little bit of a different puzzle from what we're accustomed to as far as multi-race wagers are concerned. And like you say, the takeout situation, you can't overstate that enough. We talk about horse player friendly wagers. This is one of them. Need to give some tip of the cap to our friends at Canterbury with that 10% pick 5 that they've been putting on. I mean, that's a fantastic wager. And if you're going to get involved with any one multi-race wager of the week, I know there's the cross country. I know Belmont's got theirs. I know all these different places have theirs. These would be two I would strongly encourage you to, at the very least, consider. And look, and I totally glossed over Laurel with their 12% pick 5. So there are good, friendly sort of wagering opportunities for horse players. And again, we need to support those bets to make it clear to the industry that we want more of this as opposed to some of the other things.
Right. If you put on your racetrack executive hat, you can see when you just look at a handle total why that jackpot pick X that I was saying I was unhappy with. You can see why tracks keep busting them out. People keep betting them.
Yeah.
Whereas some of these other bets, they're doing well. I mean, the early Canterbury returns were solid. Stronach 5 numbers are solid, but they could be better. And we're the ones who can make that happen. Glad you mentioned Canterbury, though. Very happy to have them in our portfolio of partners. And we're going to be doing some more Canterbury coverage as things go on. They've got some stakes next week and a big stakes card coming up in a couple of weeks that we'll be probably doing a special show for, which I'm excited about. Some people might be a little surprised by that notion of the dollar being more small player friendly. And you really have to wrap your mind around it. And I think it has to do with what you said, Matt, about not just the way tickets are constructed, but the way that your biggest adversaries, in a sense, are constructing tickets. When the biggest players out there, especially those, Tony Joe, don't get mad at me, but especially those using computers, are able to play so many combinations efficiently, you'll see this over time. When the low minimums came in, I thought they were the best thing that happened to the small player. Now I can play tickets just like a pro. But the problem is over time, in my opinion, the value has just been drained. And even when you hit it now, it pays so much less than it should. You look at the Stronach 5 week in, week out, and I feel like it consistently, and by the math, pays a lot more than it should. And that's something I'm super excited about. Matt, let's talk about this first race at Gulfstream. I'm sort of working on the fly here with Gulfstream. I did the full work on Belmont. Another interesting thing about today, in our contest, we've just got the two tracks to worry about. But what did you come up with in this first race at Gulfstream? And I'll take a quick little look at it while you're running it down.
$25,000 non-winners to 2 life, going 5/8 on grass. It's, typically, again, we've brought it up. Jonathan was one of the I don't want to say one of the first people, but he was really the one that kind of smacked me in the face saying it's speed in these kind of races. I agree with that. But in a race like this, where these are horses that it's kind of a double-edged sword where these horses don't like to pass one another. Clearly, these are a bunch of horses that have won one race to date. But at the same time, I think there's going to be a fair amount of speed signed on. I was hopeful to find a horse that could be in just behind. And I get it. It's a giant turn back in distance for the number 5 Mikado, going from a 2-turn mile down to the 1-turn 5/8 of a mile. But this one showed some speed going longer. I'm hopeful there's going to be a little bit of bottom here, and I'm hopeful the horse isn't entirely out-sprinted early. I'd be lying if I said this was a super confident opinion. This is a horse whose only win to date was in gate-to-wire fashion going 2 turns. So this may not end up being this horse's game, but I'd like to give her a little bit of a look in the hopes that maybe 2 or 3 horses line up right in front of her. They throw it down. They feel the effects of that hot pace early on, and she's going to have a little bit left in the tank. She can get the jump on horses trying to come from off of it. And I also looked at the sequence and thought there are a couple of spots where I like some middling prices, what I think are sort of the sweet spot, sort of the 6, 7, 8 to 1. But there were also some favorites that I just didn't really want to try to beat. This was a race where I wasn't sold on the chalk, so I took a big number. She's 23 to 1 right now.
I mean, at that price, there's absolutely you don't need much to like a horse at that price. And I like the trip that you lay out. It does seem like there's an abundance of speed. JK actually elaborated on a recent podcast about his theory of turf sprints. And he said something you'd never he never put it quite this well before. He said it's the speed of the speed, or it's just the top figure. Like the top figure finds out some way to get it. And he said that the reason people like you and me in the past, Matt, have found these races so vexing is that we're overthinking them, and that they're actually quite formful, and that the bombs that come in are typically those speed of the speed bombs, and it's a question of identifying them. And he feels like the high fig has a particularly strong advantage. And looking at those two factors, they would lead me to the number 4 here, a horse with a name after your own heart, Matt Bernier, Boston Beauties.
I'm decked out in Boston gear right now. I got a BU hockey shirt on. I got my Sox hat on, knowing that baseball's back. You name it, we're good to go.
We might have to talk a little baseball before it's all said and done today. I still can't get my mind around it. I'm still like, I'm holding back from wanting to like accept that it's really going to actually happen. I'm taking a little bit of a believe it when I see it approach. But, as a big fantasy baseball player, I can't do that. I got to start getting stuck in. I'll give a shot to the 4 Boston Beauties. It's number 5, Mikado for Matt Bernier. They're loading into the gate here. I was about to throw it to Pete Aiello, but we're not on Sky Sports Racing. So I'm throwing it back to Matt Bernier. We'll just sort of chat through this race as we go. But those are our thoughts. Big favorite here is All About Stella. At least looking at the Timeform US pace projector, this is one that's going to have to work out a trip. I don't necessarily want that in these 5 furlong turf sprints. I don't know. Obviously, you weren't thrilled with the horse either. Is this one of the top contenders in your view, though?
It's just difficult for me to love a horse at 2-1 who's 1 for 15 lifetime. I'm not suggesting she can't win by any stretch, but there's not enough there for me to be willing to take $6 on her. I think this is one of those races where if she wins, I'll tip my cap and say, you know what? Good on her. She was able to finally break through the N2L ranks. But I'm just more inclined in a spot like this to try to find a bit of a better number, a horse that, look, and the other thing is her only victory to date, she came from like a half length off of it. But I at the price, I don't want any part of her.
She did break with alacrity. Meanwhile, the 4, who was on top in the Timeform pace projector, seemed maybe half a step slow off. So certainly the favorite, if there was in-running betting, the favorite's probably a little bit shorter than that 2-1 from here. Where's your horse here? You feel
much farther back than I would have hoped. I figured she was going to be involved, or I don't want to say involved, but in sort of that second flight. Now she's going to try to make up some ground down on the inside coming from the back. I think she's probably going to have too much work to do here, and she's in behind horses at this point. At the very best, she's probably going to get 3rd or 4th in here. But again, it's basically what Jonathan has preached. I mean, these were the 2 horses that showed the speed. And again, I tip my cap and say All About Stella. She's making 2-1 according to Pete Aiello. Look like easy money.
Easy money call. I love.
Well, he didn't bust it out, but I'm going to take liberties there and say, I'll give him credit for it. She made $6 look like stealing, but I just, there's no scenario where I would be backing a horse like that. And it has nothing to do with, could she win? Certainly. But this game's about value. And to me, she was a terrible underlay at 2-1. That's just my opinion. And clearly I was wrong.
Yeah. And you weren't, it's funny you say that. You weren't necessarily wrong so much as it's clear that it didn't work out. But being clear that something didn't work out isn't the same thing as being clear that you were wrong. Because I would argue, if you told us ahead of time the horse is going to break like a rocket and be laying off a speed that can be taken at any time, then that's fine. But I don't know. On paper, like I said, Timeform had 6 horses ahead. Yeah. I'm trying to look at another pace projector I use sometime and see if that one had a little private program I look at sometimes. I'm curious if that one had the pace scenario any better. I feel like, good decision, bad outcome. They're going to happen just about every day in this sport. Something that you can let get you down.
No, and this is the kind of horse that I don't feel bad about losing to. Like I said, it's an instance where if you like the horse, if you loved her, great. I say good on you. It worked out. And again, she made $6 look like absolute thievery. But I feel like we kind of know what her game is at this point. And like you say, if you had told me that was the trip that she was going to work out, maybe I would think differently. But even then, I would have said 2-1, just kind of light. I would probably prefer somewhere in the 3.5 to 1 range. And she was just never going to sniff that. So good on the folks that had her to kick things off. It's not a result that's going to turn this thing on its head for the first race, which to me is always a good thing. I always prefer a contest, especially in a pick and pray. By the way, 102 entries, meaning the top 10 are going to qualify for tomorrow's BCBC qualifier. Again, this is not a horse that I'm terrified of. It's one that if he wins, good. There's going to be a number of people that have her. You're going to need more than, let's say, the 1080 that you're going to get back to qualify for this thing. So I'll take my chances going forward. Did we lose PTF?
Did I freeze here on the screen?
Can hear you now.
There.
We can hear you now. Producer Craig saying that you're getting a little bit choppy on us.
Hang on.
I can take it from here if he needs to reboot things. Craig, what do you say?
Let me do a little bit of work on my end. I'll be back in 45 seconds. Yeah, we'll be back.
No
really
worries.
Quick.
So we're waiting. It is now official down at Gulfstream. This is race number 7. Again, the first leg of the contest. And for those of you that didn't have the horse, like myself, I don't think this is a result that's going to make you freak out by any stretch of the imagination. You're probably looking at somewhere in the ballpark of $10.80, $11, somewhere around there. I'm trying to find out what the actual mutuals are going to be. The runner-up, Twice as Magical, was a 4.5 to 1 shot. So no major damage there. As far as our next race is concerned at Belmont, you've got a pretty heavy favorite in here in Javelin. And I like Javelin last time out. This horse is 9 to 5 on the morning line. I thought put in a pretty decent bid beneath the Rat Ortiz in the most recent run. The concern I have here this afternoon is the lack of speed, at least projected anyway on paper, that this race features. So a horse like Javelin is going to need to be considerably better than the rest of the field. And going back to what I was speaking about with the favorite who won the first race at Gulfstream, to me at 8 to 5, I just don't know that I look at Javelin and say that's fair value, given the pace situation and the likelihood of this one having to rally from off of slow fractions. The number 1 Blue Belt is taking quite a bit of money. It's going to be second start off the layoff for Jeffrey Englehart's barn. Dylan Davis is listed as the rider, taking some money. 9 to 5. You can understand why. Has some early speed. Don't love the overall record at Belmont Park. 7 minor awards from 10 lifetime starts. I ended up going on the far outside with the 7, and I say the far outside, it's a big field. I've only got 6 with a scratch in here. I thought Tale of Mist was interesting. Tale of Mist, for whatever reason, has lost some of that early foot that she once had, or he once had, I should say, a 7-year-old. But if you believe the lowest level to date that this horse is going to run at, dropping from the $25,000 open claiming ranks most recently off the layoff down to the $10,000 level here this afternoon, I'm hopeful the horse can at least be reasonably close to the front end. I don't want to have to rally. And again, I'm talking about a horse that's 4 for 44 lifetime and has run second or third on 21 occasions. Clearly a little bit more of a nibbler, but I throw that sort of piece out there knowing that this horse has been running against better horses in the past. And maybe the class relief here this afternoon, coupled with hopefully finding a little bit of that once had early tactical ability, is going to be a difference maker. Just heads up. I think Javelin is a better horse. And I know it may sound like I'm splitting hairs, but 8 to 5 compared to 2 to 1, I would take the 2 to 1 on Tale of Mist, who I think might be a little bit more tactical than a horse like Javelin at 8 to 5. We'll see. I'll take a look at some of the will pays. PTF, you're back in here. Did you have any kind of opinion in this spot? I ended up going with the 7 Tale of Mist, hoping that he could be reasonably close to what is seemingly a paceless race.
When I designed this race in my head, I just keep coming back to a great trip for number 1 Blue Belt. Now, when I did my picks earlier, I think I was assuming there'd be a little more juice in the price than 8 to 5. But I just like the fact that this one ran protected from the claim last time, and I thought looked laid out for a good effort for maybe just off the pace. And inside's been better at Belmont. Not like it's been a gold rail or anything, but I don't feel like it's been the disadvantage that maybe it was for some of the days a little bit earlier in the meet before Belmont Stakes Day. But I definitely I see the case for the three big ones for sure.
If you just out of curiosity, if Blue Belt ended up on the lead, like I'm kind of envisioning from the inside for the reasons you've laid out, inside over the past day or two has been nice at Belmont Park. And again, with just a complete lack of early speed in this race, would you be disappointed with Blue Belt outright on the lead?
No, I typically am okay with on or near. When I have a forward type, when I have a push button type, I love. Now, granted, from the rail, the jockey doesn't have as many tactical options, but the short field might help a bit more with that. But I'm good either way. So, what happened with Caden's Courage? A very late scratch? Did that happen in just the time we were watching here?
Are we down another horse? Who am I missing here? Oh, no, I'm good. The only one that I'm missing is Blinded Vision, the number 3.
Oh, I'm looking at the wrong race. The wrong race and the wrong pace projector.
I'll tell you what, that is always, that happened to me one day out in LA at TVG. We're going through, I don't even remember what race it was, but I'm just riffing along, talking about X, Y, and Z, why this horse, where they're going to be positioned, da-da-da-da. And I look and I see that I'm one race ahead. And I try to just do it as seamlessly as possible, transitioning into the next horse. And I don't remember who I was working with, but they were like, I was wondering where you were going with that. And I said, user error. User error. It happens. It happens when you're looking at 15 different races at one time. But
it was exacerbated by the fact that the wrong race I was looking at also had the 3 listed on the lead, as Blinded Vision would have been here, which is why Blinded Vision's a bit of a runoff. So I was thinking Blue Belt would sit. Without Blinded Vision, Blue Belt should probably just make the front in here. And for a contest play, I'll just throw this one out there, or just for a price. Gaultier, maybe. I mean, that's just a big price in a short field, and maybe it has to do with the layoff and not being ready. I recognize this pick as a stretch. You don't get a lot of 15-1 shots who you can make form and figures cases for, especially not in races that aren't Breeders' Cup. But Gaultier, there's a drop, and there are races from Woodbine back in the distant past that could see this one at least get somewhere on the board. So from a contest point of view, that one's a little interesting, and I also could see playing a little bit of 157 with 4 kind of deal as well, just because I feel like that's a little bit too big on the 4 Gaultier.
We've talked about the idea of trying to create value in an instance like this. And like you say, that's almost more valuable than identifying the winner. If you can find a horse at that kind of price that you think can grab a piece of this thing underneath, like you say, what's wrong with playing the 3 chalks on top, but knowing that if the 4 doesn't run second, it's a losing bet. But frankly, there have been so many times where I've had friends that have said, oh, I boxed the 3 favorites. And I go, for what? What are you doing? I mean, at best, you're hoping to turn a 2% profit. I mean, we're splitting hairs here at this point. If you're going to do something like that, you like the 3 chalks, try to find some sort of value underneath. I would even say go 4-6 underneath if you really were or 2-4-6. If you were so inclined to try to play some sort of an exacta, use bombs underneath. Just as long as it doesn't run chalk. It's the reason that I'm not playing anything in this race outside of my pick in the contest. But yeah, I mean, this is the way that you try to do that sort of thing.
And you see that happen sometimes, even in a short field with 2 dominant horses. They end up having the real race in the middle part of the race, and one of them goes on with it, and the other gasses out. And you'll see a lot of times some, as they're referred to in Mike Maloney's book, Betting with an Edge, a dinker just come along, one that hasn't done any real running, but they can pass that tired horse in the stretch. I don't hate that strategy at all. All the less do I hate it in a short field.
PTF, foreshadowing for the Fleur de Lis, possibly.
Okay, I like that. That's one of the races we want to be talking about. I'm very happy. The one making the lead rather easily, and then just taking a hold. Gaultier's right out there. And where is are you happy with where you are with Taylor?
No. So, I mean, again, this is one of those things that until it happens, you don't really know. Maybe we're just at a point now as a 7-year-old where he's just entirely void of that early tactical ability that he once had. And unfortunately for me, that's kind of what we're looking at right here. If you like Blue Belt, and again, the price isn't great, 23-4 going 6.5. I don't know. I don't know what else, or 7. I'm sorry. I mean, this is the candy trip of all candy trips. If the horse can't get it done, it is what it is. But I'm certainly not going to blame the ride or the fractions. 47 for a half.
Yeah, I'd double the 6 to 5, double the bet at 6 to 5 right now, to say the least. Look back doesn't mean the horse is going to finish. Gaultier is going to run out, so that's not going to help. We'll just see what Blue Belt has left here in the lane, if it's anything. If he's the 10 claimers, they
Yeah,
strange things can happen, but sure looks like he's home and hosed down here.
I would say so, and it's another one of those pieces where the 5 horse here, Javelin, kind of taken out of his element. This is a horse that wants to close from way out of it, would appreciate a big pace to run at. He didn't get that here. I like what Arad did, get him into the race earlier, but again, from a running style standpoint, that's not really what this horse wants to do. He wants to take back, make a one run. When you're given lemons, you got to try to make lemonade out of it, and Arad tried to do that. I give him credit, it just didn't work out.
It's an underrated aspect of handicapping, I think. I know I don't do it quite enough, but really trying to determine and put into buckets the horses that giving extra credit for versatility, horses who you've seen run their good figures in a variety of pace scenarios, and then just setting them up from the ones that really just have the one way to go. I think we all do it with need the lead types, but you can really do it with different kinds of, you can break into subsection different types of pressers, mid-pack runners, closers, put them in buckets, and know, this one really only runs their race when they're in a certain situation. And if they're not going to get that certain situation, it's a way you can find favorites to oppose. Now, granted, in this case, the market got it exactly right in the end, with Blue Belt being that short. I can't claim that was any brilliant pick or any kind of value, but I do think it's a smart way of just looking at the world.
Well, and especially too, if you are, let's say, playing in a contest, or you're just playing cash on your own and you're looking for those horses, let's say you're playing a try or an exacta, like you say, we can all identify the need the lead types. When they don't get it their way, they pack it in. But you also have those horses that they come with that run from the back of the pack, no matter what the circumstances are. And they have a chance to win if things go crazy fast early on. But they're the kind of horses that at big numbers will run third more often than not. I think offhand anyway of a horse like a Keen Ice. I think of my son Opportunity, who just rock solid, blue collar, going to show up and give you what he's got. More often than not, it's not going to be good enough against grade one company unless the pace situation presents itself. Or in my case with Opportunity, he was running on the wrong coast his entire career. If he was in New York, I maintain he would have been a much better horse, but neither here nor there. But the idea is he's going to run. He's going to give you what he's got, and more likely than not, it'll be good enough for third. But third at a decent price is something that'll help. If you love a favorite on top, that's fine. But if you can key a horse at 10, 15 to 1 underneath, like he would have been in the Breeders' Cup Classic a few years ago, that was the way that I played that. And it's going to sound like proper red boarding, but going back to the Arrogate California Chrome Classic, I didn't see any way it wasn't those two in first and second. And then underneath, I thought it's got to be Opportunity or Keen Ice. I ended up keying Opportunity and used 3 or 4 horses otherwise in third and fourth. And again, that ended up being for a superfecta that paid like $1,000, which
it was unbelievable.
For $1, that's nothing to sneeze at with the 2 horses that were 15 lengths clear of the rest of the field.
Yeah, it's a very good point. As long as there are bets like the trifecta and superfecta, there's great value in being able to identify decent priced horses who are going to run third and fourth. I actually want to talk to you more about that concept, but I think you gave us such a nice lead in to the Fleur de Lis with that segue, and that is one of the Breeders' Cup Challenge Series win and you're in races for this weekend for the Breeders' Cup Distaff. I think we should go there next. I want to hear your thoughts on this. We had a fun chat on the show. JK was absolutely panicked when he saw the original composition of this race and, where's Monomoy Girl? What's going on? And for those who don't know, he has this wager for a certain amount of jelly beans with our friend Craig Bernick of Glen Hill Farm and the Thoroughbred Idea Foundation that Serengeti Empress is not going to win another grade 1. So here he is panicking that she's going to be loose on the lead in a grade 1. And somebody had to be like, dude, chill. It's a grade 2.
Grade 2.
And the look of relief on his face when he realized not only was he not going to have to fork over the jelly beans, but he could actually now this time get to root for his friend Tom Amos's horse. He became friends with Amos through the Fox shows subsequently to his making this wager. I don't think he ever would have made it just for the social awkwardness factor had he already known Amos. Anyway, this time he can root for Serengeti Empress. She's got a great situation, but she's also got an 800-pound gorilla to face off against in Midnight Bisou. I'll let you kick off, Matt. What do you think's going to happen in the Grade 2 Fleur de Lis tomorrow?
I have to be honest. I think, and this is going to sound very, very dumb, I think the key to the race is Midnight Bisou and Mike Smith, because she's shown in the past, she's not necessarily a horse that's a burner, but she has at least shown in the past the ability to be close to fast paces. And I don't know if you're in this position, you look at just the face value of the race. Maybe a horse like Motion Emotion can go early on, but I don't think anyone has the early proper speed that a horse like Serengeti Empress does. So if you're Mike Smith, are you looking at it from the aspect of we can spot Serengeti Empress 2, 3, 4 lengths and still be able to run her down if she's loose on the lead, maybe 1 1/8 pushing it for her, but keep in mind she did win the Oaks at Churchill at 1 1/8 last year. If you think you're that good, I mean, I tip my cap if she goes and is able to do that. But there's a part of me that wonders if Smith goes after or sits reasonably close in attendance, pushes the pace a little bit early on, does that end up softening one or both of them up and set this thing up for chaos where somebody rallies from off of it? I'm not betting on that. I think Serengeti Empress is just, there's one way for Joe Talamo to go. Just go and try to open up. If somebody wants to run with you, so be it. But we're at a point now where I think it's abundantly clear that Serengeti Empress is a need the lead type. If she doesn't get the lead, she's not going to run. I think you just open up on her. If Midnight Bisou wants to try to run with you, so be it. If she beats you because she's just better than you, so be it. But I'm always a big proponent of, if you're going to lose with your best asset. Don't try to reinvent the wheel. I don't want her sitting on 48 or 49 for a half. I want her running the way she did in the Azeri. Go and open up, run 45 and 4, 46 seconds. You've put 6 legs on the field, get everybody off the bridle and say, you know what, if you're good enough to run me down, so be it. I picked Serengeti Empress, but I'm going to be very, very interested to see what we get from a tactical decision from the connections of Midnight Bisou. Do they want to try to run with her early to keep her honest and then potentially soften both of them up? Or do they just think they're that much better than the rest of the field that they can sit, spot her a few lengths and still run her down?
I think looking at the big picture of life, what you're saying makes perfect sense. Looking at the big picture of life, I don't think they're going to ride Midnight Bisou the same way they would if this race were
the distaff.
Yes. I feel like we've seen this move. We've all seen it from Mike Smith. He's one of maybe the only jockey who does it. If you see a jockey do this in a race, you pretty much know Mike Smith is on. He does it in big stakes races. And I've seen him do it just with, important horses or very good horses in California on a more workaday basis, where he'll make that super early Secretariat in the Preakness type move. You know what I'm referring to?
Of course.
And you could see that really turning this into a match. But I think it's still going to be advantage Serengeti Empress. She's going to lay down the gauntlet like you described. And I think that with this being the comeback race from Saudi and having all kinds of grade 1 targets down the line, I don't think they're going to mind if they're a really good second here and she just runs her race. I don't see them going extra hard to just try to win this race. I think they're thinking about an entire campaign, not a battle. I mean, that would be my inclination. And then on the other hand, I think what you said about Serengeti and tactics is exactly right. I mean, Tom Amoss is so sharp. He's like a proper handicapper. He could be a great horse player if he didn't. I mean, maybe he even is a great horse player. There's certainly stories on JK+1 about him having all kinds of scores as a horse player. But, trainers have different concerns than horse players do. This guy's got the horse player skill set baked into everything he does, and he's going to know exactly the right move. And I think it's going to make Mike Smith feel uncomfortable to have to attack early when she's out there winging. And I think they're just going to run 1-2. But I mean, I take your point. If you see that aggressive early Mike Smith ride with the speed that Serengeti is going to be going, something weird could happen. In that theoretical world where something weird happens, who's the beneficiary in your view?
I mean, you go through, again, a horse like Motion Emotion can't be too far off of it. She's going to be involved. I would imagine. I thought, I don't know who it was, so forgive me for not giving due credit, but someone pointed out maybe in another lifetime, Motion Emotion could have been a bit of a fly in the ointment for a horse like Serengeti Empress. I just don't think she's got that kind of early gas anymore. And depending on what someone like Mike Smith wants to do, if they are inclined on trying to win this race, But I tend to agree with you. I think they're probably looking big picture. We've got bigger prizes down the road. Maybe it's a horse like Chocolate Kisses, who is not coming from 100 out of it, but is probably mid-flight, maybe mid-pack, 7-8 lengths off of it. If they throw it down early, starts to fall apart. Maybe she just outstays everyone. I know she's 0 for 4 at Churchill in the past, but I feel like distance is not going to be the thing that gets her beat. Maybe she's not necessarily as talented as some of these other horses, but maybe she just kind of is the beneficiary of potentially something that falls apart. But I'm kind of with you. I don't see a scenario where it's not one of the two. I was just throwing that out there as, would it be absolutely insanity if those two went at it, one of them got softened up by the other, and somebody else at a big, big number came and rolled from the back of the pack? I think of the Frosted Pharaoh Travers, where a horse like Keen Ice, did he run the best race? I would say probably not. I think he ran the second best race, despite the fact that he won. American Pharaoh ran the best race because of the fractions and Frosted softening him up. So, do with that what you will. I think it's going to be Serengeti Empress and Midnight Bisou, and I agree with you wholeheartedly that I think the connections of Midnight Bisou will be very, very content with a good effort from her. She doesn't need to win this thing. I don't think it's the end-all, be-all. From there, do with it what you will. I think Serengeti Empress, you drop the hammer and you say, come and catch me.
Yeah, she's so good, Midnight Bisou, that even though she's clearly getting the worst of it in terms of tactical edge, she could still just win anyway. But
Yes.
but I mean, this is Serengeti Empress's day, I would think. They're off in the Stronach 5 for those paying attention to that. Looks like they had a nice little pool today, a nice little increase over last week. JK and I spread, and it looks like the 9, who is making the lead in deep stretch, should be okay here. This is one of the ones on our ticket as an A. I don't have prices in front of me at Laurel right now. Do you have them by chance?
I can quickly pull something up for you, I believe. Let's see.
Looks like
I'm looking at 6-1.
Oh, wonderful. I'll take that every day of the week.
I believe.
That's the nice thing about the dollar minimum also, I'll say.
10-1.
10? You're kidding. Wow. That's terrific.
I assume I'm looking at the right. Fia? Fergal Lynch was aboard. Michael Merriman.
Oh, my goodness. Am I looking at the one of us is looking at the wrong race? It might well be me. I'm going to just go to the Laurel feed and get this for sure. But it's definitely the 9 in the first leg. So we're good. And with these dollar minimums, one great thing about them is I feel like one result in the low minimum bets isn't enough anymore to unlock prices. Whereas, yeah, you are absolutely right. FIA for Michael Merriman. One race isn't enough. Whereas I do feel like in the dollar minimum, you get that 1/6-1 shot in there. It's enough to start making it pay more than it quote unquote should. So that's a nice angle.
I would agree with that. Like you say, with the larger minimum, it doesn't take chaos for it to pay off. Where I feel like we're at a point now, and people will joke and laugh about the all button. You can't possibly like all the horses in the race or whatever the case may be. But I do understand the logic behind it. If you do think the race is rather wide open and you're playing it only at a 50-cent increment, unless you love a horse in there and you're going to hammer it you're playing the pick 4, the pick 5 for $2, $3, $4, $5, $10, whatever it may be. I do understand the people that look at it and say it's a 10-horse field. I don't think the favorite has much of a chance. Let me just spread as deep as I possibly can. For the 50-cent increment, I understand that happens probably more often than it should, but I do get the logic that if you can catch a 35-1 shot, that's when it's going to actually pay decent.
Yeah, that sounds exactly right. Let's talk about this next race at Gulfstream. This is the second race in the Stronach 5. Spent a lot more time on this one. I couldn't decide. I kept going back and forth between who was going to be the best of speed between the 3 Corey Gal and the 6 Liza Star. In the end, we had a chat about it on the show. We couldn't separate them. We decided we wanted to use them both equally as A's, and then we went ahead and we popped Crumbum in there just in the case that they went too fast. Crumbum looked like clearly the best closer. We felt like we had it surrounded with the 3 and the 6 as A's and the 1 as B's. Tell me you don't like one of these others, Matt.
No, I like Crumbum in here. I feel like it's one of those moves that this could very easily be a move that is too difficult for her going from the N1X to the N2X. But the way that you laid it out was the reason that I liked her a little bit in here. I like that she's proven at the 6.5 furlong distance, a little bit of an oddity. Some horses love 6, some are better 7 out to a 1-turn mile. The 6.5 is a tweener. I like the idea that she doesn't have to have the lead. Let the 3 and the 6 line up. I feel like the 3 is going to clear. I think the 6, I shouldn't say clear. I think the 3 goes. I think the 6 sits off the flank. And I think the 1 is maybe a length or 2 off of it. And you hope that the 2 in front of you go fast enough that perhaps it sets it up for a horse like Crumb Bun at a decent price. That was the other part that I had a difficulty factoring things in. I had a hard enough time separating the 3 and the 6 from a talent standpoint. I also had a difficult time really buying into 4 to 5, 2 to 1, somewhere in that ballpark. I just thought Crumb Bun was going to be the alternative, and she is. She's 4 to 1 right now, so I went with the 1.
All right, the 1 Crumb Bum. I think you make a very good race design type case. I guess if I were to pick one, if I'm torn between which one's the best of speed, and I don't know, and one is 5 to 2 and the other's 4 to 5 as they are right now, that forces my hand to go with the 3 Corey Gal as my top pick, though I certainly understand the Crumb Bum case. Hoping for something nice and logical, that 10 to 1A kicking off the Stronach bed for me. I'm happy if the rest of this thing chalks out. I just want to hit the darn thing. Folks interested in more info on the Stronach 5, we do the podcast specifically for that every week. You can find that over on our network, In the Money podcast.com, or if you go to iTunes and search for the main In the Money Players podcast feed, where you'll also find the Matt Bernier show. Matt, you mentioned, are you ready to talk about this publicly, or are you still refining? Yeah. It's cool. Really cool new wrinkle for the Matt Bernier show, which I've been enjoying throughout the pandemic for its blend of evergreen horse racing content, as well as keeping abreast of all the top stories in racing that are of interest to horse players. But there's not that many things now that 87 people have horse racing podcasts, including extended members of my family. I was surprised to be able to say to you before when you mentioned this to me, man, nobody's ever done that. I thought it was a cool idea.
So first things first, whenever anyone listens or watches on YouTube, I make it clear. I need to hear back from you, because I don't want to do what you guys want to listen to or watch. It doesn't do me any good to just sit here and chirp to myself. I want to know if there's good, bad, or indifferent. So this past week, I got some feedback from a number of folks over on YouTube saying that they want a little something different, maybe mix in an interview. It's getting a little bit sort of status quo, and I respect that. That's good. I would rather hear that than someone just kind of saying, "Oh yeah, everything's great, keep moving on." So as a bit of an alternative, a number of people brought up the interview piece, and for me, it's twofold. A, I don't feel I'm particularly good at doing interviews. Just point blank, I can do them, but I don't feel like it's a strength of mine. And also, there were so many other people doing interviews, and the possibilities as far as guests are concerned, there would be a number of overlapping pieces where, whether it was you guys with the In the Money podcast, whether it was Naomi with Talk Racing to me, Spencer with the Red Board Rewind, JK +1, whomever it was, there's probably going to be another avenue where these folks have been spoken to in the past, or there's been some sort of dialogue. I want to at least open the idea, and look, this only works if people are willing to do it, but I'm going to bring it up on Monday's pod. The idea of one race a week, it'll probably be a Thursday or a Friday, probably a Friday. I'll be the one to identify what the race is, but I want to have somebody on with me for a segment. We record it. If you don't want your face on there, we just do it audio only. But the idea is I want to hear you go over the race, and we just kind of spitball back and forth. Let me know what your opinion is. And there might be some tweaks here if I turn it into a little bit of a game or whatever the case may be for the long term. But I just like the idea of, there have been so many people that have brought up, barrier to entry and it being difficult to get involved or start off and try to find some piece there. If this is, I'm not saying this is going to end up being a gateway to getting a job, but at the very least, you want to have your opinion heard, come on. Let's chop up a race, whether it's the feature at Belmont, whether it's the third at Gulfstream, who knows, whatever the case may be. And let's have some fun with it. If you tell me something that I don't know, or the horse that you like, I hate, or vice versa, we can dive into it. But I wanted to try to change it up a little bit, given the feedback that I've heard from listeners and viewers. And I feel like this would probably be a nice little wrinkle, maybe a 10, 15, 20-minute segment every week. And trying to get just everybody involved. Because at the end of the day, that's all I really care about. If we can get more people involved, the better.
You've done such a great job creating a sense of community. You see it on your YouTube page. I should have plugged that before. We're going to be doing more and more with the In the Money YouTube page, but you, Matt, single-handedly have done a great job in launching a community over there. I think this is going to be a great way to foster a community. And who knows? You say you're not doing it as a way to necessarily get somebody a job or whatever, but maybe somebody goes on there and they have some insight and it helps them as a player, or it helps them realize, hey, I've got some skill for talking about.
Put it this way: I'm not guaranteeing a position.
That would put the number of racing podcasts up in the many hundreds. Remember when it was just us, Matt? There was a time, Derek Simon was before us and always gets that credit. The old U-Bet, I think it was U-Bet, it started out when he did his thing. He is the OG of podcasts. But I feel like after that, maybe there were a couple of things out there, but in terms of continuously running, it was you and it was me, and it was November, I think. Was it November or October? Maybe it was. I can't remember. If we did if we had our show yet for Breeders' Cup, but fall of 2014.
Yeah, it's been a minute.
We've been on air ever since.
It's been a minute. I had that little hiatus there making the transition, but and I just think, I don't remember who it was, but somebody on Twitter pointed it out. They're like, well, everybody podcasts these days. It's true. But the good news is it's an opportunity for you to get your opinions out there. And, I do welcome the feedback of if it's not something you want to listen to, I don't want to do it. Let me get something going that you want to listen to actively and engage in and things like that. So maybe this is an opportunity for that to end up playing out. By the way, the 6 looks loaded.
Loaded. Yeah, this race was playing out exactly like we thought, like you said, Matt. The 6 went by the 3 so easily that I think that's going to really hurt the 1 Crumb Bun here.
I don't know. Crumb Bun's got a little fun.
Yeah, this horse is running, and the six maybe did have to work a little hard. This is gonna be interesting. I could see the 6 finding. I could see you getting there. Call for me, better price with the 1, but the 6 and the 6 being in would give me more coverage. 6 is finding here as we get close to the wire and going to just hold. But it comes 6-1 and then a long shot. The 3 was gassed and the 5 came and got up for 3rd. That's a funny one in multi-race bets where I don't. Tonight, I'll know what I should have been rooting for there a lot more than I did right then. But I'll take having the extra coverage of the Bs. We did not play a 2B ticket. Okay. For folks for whom this is a foreign language, maybe we should take a second and explain. This is based on the Barry Meadow, Stephen Christ approach to playing multi-race tickets, where instead of just playing all horses equally, you divide them into main horses and backups. And then depending on the day and the sequence, you can allow either 1 or 2 backups to come in and still have the ticket often for a lower increment. I think we're probably better off with the A because we have a lot of sequences with backups coming up. And we also played our A combination for that extra $1. We'll have it for $2 instead of 1. So I'm feeling good about that result. We should check in on this contest, by the way. I don't know. Maybe when I was off air before you were able to do that, but when this
while you're diving into that one little piece here, and it's just a little handicapping nugget. We've talked about how, if nothing else, if you don't win anything in the midst of these, maybe you can learn something, or something to just kind of go back to when you go forward with whatever races you're going over. And it sounds like redboarding, but it's the truth of the matter. Liza Star. Keep an eye on the conditions and the levels, okay? The horse that I like, Crumb Bun, I made it clear that the possibility of the hiking class, maybe that's going to be a little bit too much for her to deal with, going from the N1X to the N2X. You've got a horse like Corey Gal, who's never really gotten through the N2X conditions. Go to Liza Star. Liza Star won at this condition 3 starts back. So she was getting some class relief. She was taking on, obviously, Stakes Company, Florida Breds in the most recent start. The run 2 starts back, tougher again. Always in the back of your mind, look for horses that have had success at the level. It may not unearth you some sort of big price, but if you're looking for a horse that you can maybe key around, and again, I can't state this enough. I would not have keyed Liza Star. There was too many unknowns in here. But it was very abundantly clear. She had won at the N2X level 3 back. She does it again here today.
And it's a very good point about class and looking at conditions. And it's one of those things, not unlike a good point you made before about the subtleties of difference in distance. I think they're really, really helpful. To me, they're not like as fundamental as pace, speed,
Agreed,
and form, but they're a great way to separate once you've got your short list of contenders down there. Like I'm now feeling silly that, I mean, who knows? It could also be luck involved and randomness, but I'm now feeling silly that I wasn't able to clearly identify that the 6 was going to be the best of speed. Maybe there would have been a way to press and get a little bit of extra going there, but it's also never easier than it is with hindsight.
Oh, of course.
We should talk about this Belmont race, number 6, coming up in 3 minutes time, not part of the Strong Five. I got to remember to watch that next race at Laurel. I'm gonna get distracted. If you remember and I'm about to miss it, let me know.
I'll keep eyes.
I had a little bit of a guess here, and the tote board is saying that maybe I guessed right.
I'm with you.
I put No Salt on top. This one debuted at Saratoga Dirt Sprinting, and was bet like crazy. Okay, like wildly overbet. Horse looked nice. And my note was just simply, good-looking horse, bet like crazy. Look for down the line doing something else. Well, today we get something else, going a mile on the grass. I poked around in the damn side pedigree. I think this is what this one wants to do. This is my top pick in here. I do 3 selections for the unnamed ADW that I'm doing a little bit of picking for. And I also use the 4 and the 10, both very obvious, but I want to see what No Salt can do this time around. Looks a little bit live. What do you think, Matt?
Yeah, you and I look at it very similarly. I went with No Salt in here as well for the reasons you brought up. For a Mott Firster to be bet that way at Saratoga, I'm going to view that as a positive, despite the fact that the horse didn't really have much of an effort. It's been gone for quite some time. Absolutely, you got to factor that in, but you brought it up. You see the dam side. I believe the only sibling thus far is a winner on turf and has run reasonably well in all 4 lifetime starts. Tonalist is a decent turf sire to date. It's early on. It's kind of difficult to draw major conclusions, but I believe call it around 12, 13% as far as his turf runners and 5 for 32 with the firsters on grass. So I think the tote is very telling in here. The tote is either very telling or it's an instance where people are looking at it saying, Barley won, sure, makes some sense, can win. Ain't Funky Now, sure, makes some sense, can win. But people aren't thrilled with him. And you're looking for the alternative, and maybe it is the complete unknown. Either that or the tote is telling you something. There's some signal in this noise, and either the barn or the ownership group is sending it in.
I'm curious to see what happens, what kind of trip. Junior Alvarado rides the Belmont turf so well. I recently did some study about different jockeys and trainers at the different configurations at Belmont. Basically, it was a Belmont meet preview piece, which you can find over at atheraces.com. If you struggle to find it, let me know. I'll find you a link. But Alvarado comes out very well. And that's good because the rail, this is so weird. I assumed it was just on the courses with the big dog leg, but it's not. Even 2 turns at Belmont that on turf, the rail like statistically underperforms. And I can't explain it. I can explain it with the dog leg configurations, but it's not an easy post statistically, but Junior gives me faith. And it's also, sometimes statistics are just telling you what happened in the past. They're not telling you necessarily what's going to go forward. I like that we're seeing a little bit of drift now on this one too. I'm feeling a lot better about 7-2 than 5-2 in terms of me being able to say, hey, maybe this one's a little bit of value. Definitely the kind of horse that would be better to be locked into in picks probably. Didn't play picks at Belmont today. But hopefully we'll see No Salt get it done.
I got to be honest. I mean, you take a look at the double will pays. There's no reason to believe that the horse won't tick up again to the 4, maybe even 4.5 to 1 range. The 10 and the 11 are very, very comparable in will pays. They're both at 9-2. The heavy favorite is Barley One, who is at $6 as far as the double will pay. So, and those are for $1. So I would venture to guess the 1 ticks up at least once more, if not twice more, before it's all said and done into the 4.5 to 1 range.
Can we get a quick peek at the leaderboard before these things break, Craig? If you're paying attention.
PTF, you also have 5 minutes until Laurel's next race.
Oh, thank you.
5 minutes.
Keep me posted. There we go. There we go. There it is. Oh, Togo Travaglia, who's been a regular in these games. Big scrum at the top. Togo on top. Brett Steyer, Michael Robinson, Rob Novicki, and then rounding out the top 10, John Farrell, Stephen Burdar. I wanted to
John
say
Farrell.
I don't think
not the former Red Sox manager, John Farrell.
Think it's the same John Farrell. I forgot. We do need to talk about your Joneses to talk about baseball. I can tell. Jerome Richmond, James Fox, Bruce Meyer, and Phil Hodebeck. So a good mix of familiar names and newer names out there on the leaderboard. That's good to see. Hopefully, everybody's having a good time. And with only 25 as the top scorer, everybody's still drawing live here. Everybody's
totally
8-1 shot away from being in the lead.
And that's, I think that's another piece too from, we talk about handicapping contests and things like that. You can see there's a couple left to load at Belmont. I think you need to be real about the sequence. And if you look at it and you think it's relatively formful, don't be afraid to say, you know what, I think there's going to be a bunch of 2-1 and 3-1 shots and just overload on those, recognizing that if a big bomb comes in, you're probably done. But if you think it's genuinely a pretty chalky sequence, I'm maybe there's going to be some people out there that disagree vehemently. If you look at this sequence for 7 races and you think your prices are all between, terrible. Oh no. Okay. Junior's down. Hopefully
they're okay.
Hopefully they're all right. No salt. The good news is the temporary rail appeared to do its job. So we'll see what happens there.
Those who are listening, no salt just like broke and basically tried to jump the rail and didn't make it. But we're hoping for good news there. Oh yeah.
Hopefully Junior's all right. Hopefully the Colt is all right. Again, it's so hard to see once the race is going on what happened, but I'm sure we'll get some sort of an update. Yeah, and if not, you know who to follow on Twitter who will be paying attention to things, whether it's Dave Grenning or anybody else in New York.
Our old colleague Dave would have been the first one I would have mentioned. I'm sure he'll have the news on what happened. Very scary scenes here at Belmont Park. Now we have the 5 out there on the easiest of leads, it looks like, in the aftermath, unless it's just the horse is just winging. Let me pull up some fractions.
45 and 3. I mean, we're cooking out there.
Okay, so we'll see. There's some horses running from the back. We'll see what happens in this one. Yeah, they're all in just in time for wine, all in. Barley One closing very strongly in the middle of the track. And I'm not sure anybody.
The 11's trying to put in a bid, might be able to get second.
Voliero, Voliero, good call. Good call. Looks like
but Barley One is home and hosed.
Wins by half a dozen. 4-11-6 at Belmont, and we'll wait for hopefully some good news. It was a very strange looking scene. I'm curious to see if they show the start. Hopefully they will. Hopefully, if everybody's fine, that's a good sign. If they might go back, they're going to have to look. You would assume there'd be some sort of inquiry.
Yeah, for sure.
An unusual break. And so maybe we'll get a little bit of insight into what in the blue hell happened there.
The only thing I can think is it reminds me a little bit, and again, we'll see. Hopefully we'll get a bit of a head on. It reminds me a little bit of last year out at Del Mar in the Futurity with, was it 1,000 Words? Who was it? One of the Baffert horses, the big favorite that ended up the minute the race started, tried to shoot. Who was it? 8 Rings, you're right. Tried to shoot through the gap. And again, inexperienced horses. We're talking about a second-time starter who hadn't started since the middle of July last year. So you hope it's nothing more than just a little bit of greenness and everybody is all right. But, we'll keep an eye out.
More info to come on that, and we'll keep an eye for the if they show the head on, maybe we can get some insight. Meanwhile, we got to be getting close at Laurel now.
Let's see. At Laurel Park, you have 1 minute to post. And what do you have? Tell us who you're alive to.
I will tell you. We're in the third leg here, right?
Mm-hmm. So I'll tell you what, the doubles are juicy.
We've got a single A in the 10, but we've got 3 backups with the 1, 4, and 8. So do with that what you will. Hopefully, for our sake, we'll get one of these in. Last week was very, very frustrating I truly believe we would have hit it. But for a horse it was the angle we talked about a while back, where a horse broke through the gate and ended up running. We had the horse that broke through the gate, and then if had we gotten a scratch, the post time favorite had won. So it was like doubly frustrating.
Yeah,
I can. We're gonna get one of these.
So as far as I got to be honest with you, even, and I'm just looking at the doubles and recognizing that you had a relatively short price down at Gulfstream involved. Just the doubles here at Laurel. I mean, for $2 to the 4 to 5 shot right now, you're looking at almost $55. I mean, it's a pretty juicy number there for a 4 to 5 shot on the back end of a double. So see what happens here, and obviously, if you connect with something else at a bigger price, it's even better. But
yeah, I think, I mean, my rooting style is to just root for the chalk here, because that'll give us three extra horses in the next leg. And I don't know, maybe it's wrong, maybe it's muggish, but I tend to root for the coverage and the being right on the top line, and just treating the backups as true backups. Though you're surely right, our overall financial upside, even at $1 rather than $2, goes way up if it's the one.
I'd be curious though, and I mean, I don't know, maybe you agree, disagree. I think a lot of it depends on what you have in the following legs. I mean, if you can catch a price here, but you've got many of the favorites, you know, sort of as backups, well, you're not going to, very unlikely to have favorites as backups. But the point is, if you can catch a price here and you're confident with what you've got for the remainder, for the balance of the sequence, then I would say, you know what, I'll take my chances here. But if you have bigger prices going forward and you can be alive for a better increment with the favorite in here, then it's a different story.
I look at it so simply. If we get a backup, we're 2 by 1 the rest of the way. Okay. If we get the chalk, we're 5 by 2. So I just feel like mathematically our chances just go up so much, because that's not the only advantage isn't the coverage either. We still get it double with if we're right and we get the 2 by 1, but then to have that as a backup is pretty appealing. It's unofficial. They're not looking at anything. I don't know what's going on. We're not going to worry about it too much.
There was an inquiry, by the way.
Oh, they did pop one up.
They threw it up there, and I don't know if they just quickly did away with it. I didn't happen to see. I would imagine, you know, again, I'm sure it was something to do just with the horse himself. I can't imagine there was something that caused that from another runner,
like starter or another horse, which would be what they'd be looking at in truth. So perhaps they've dismissed that quickly. Again, we're not going to cover it, you know, unless it falls in our lap. Folks interested in learning what's going on, Dave Grenig, our old colleague at Daily Racing Forum, great one to follow for all things related to news and racing in New York. So we'll send you. We'll punt on that and we'll send you there. Starting to load here at Gulfstream.
Laurel.
Excuse me, at Laurel. How many minutes do we have at Gulfstream?
It says 9, but again,
okay, so tons.
9. You can probably go to the store and be back in time.
So I've got a conversation to start. That will start. Well, we can just talk through this Laurel race. It's not officially part of our show. So here's my question for you. Evergreen type question. Been thinking about it a lot ever since I've been doing these picks. And JK and I we've had like some disagreement about it. So I'll tell you, I'll give you a little bit of backstory about our private and public conversations about this issue, and then I'll ask it to you as a question. But for me, especially in the UK, where in the UK it's different. It's not an exotic betting culture. I'm there to give winners. And obviously so much more fun to give a price. I detest, if I'm giving out one horse in a race, I really detest giving out like an odds-on favorite loser. It makes me feel, it just makes me feel bad. And I think it has in general in my public handicapping days made me look. I pick them when I pick the favorite when I love the favorite, and I love plenty of favorites. But it's something that's colored me. And JK, I think, feels like offended is way too strong of a word, especially this week when the man's had plenty of things to be offended about. But he does. I can tell he doesn't grok it when I say it. And the other day when I said it for like the third time on the show, he's like, you know what I hate? I hate giving out a 6-1 that runs third. And like, my brain immediately was like, that doesn't make sense to me. As long as there's a bet called the trifecta, you're doing your audience a great service to me to give out a 6-1 that runs third. Like the way we were talking before, that could unlock all kinds of value in the tickets. So with this as the background, my question for you, Matt Bernier, who's done plenty of this, what is a public handicapper's job? What are you trying to accomplish with the picks that you give out?
Well, all right. Let's look at it. We can break it down a few different ways. I mean, there are the folks that believe you're just supposed to pick winners, period, which I'm not going to argue with that. I think part of my background as far as coming up in this industry and playing and things like that, so I'm keeping some side eye here on your Laurel run. What do you got, about a 16th of a mile to go?
Yeah, this could get interesting, but I
think you're all right.
Yeah, I should be okay. The 8's closing me down. I mean, the 8's one of our live backups. 10 gets it.
So for me, I'm of the opinion that, and I don't mean this in sort of a derogatory way or putting anyone down. Lord knows we don't need to be doing that right now. The idea for me is anybody can pick the favorite. I don't think there's really any rocket science there. The favorite statistically is going to win more than anyone else. Yeah. Unless the horse to me is an absolute standout. And by the way, I had a 2-5 shot lose today. So, and I would have, I had no idea the horse would win 2-5. I figured it was going to be 4-5 or even money. But point is, I thought the horse was a standout. Didn't get the job done. It's fine. I think you look worse playing a 2-5 or 3-5 that loses like I did today than the 10-1 that runs third. Because to me, you needed to have some idea of a price that was going to fire or do something solid today. And it's why whenever I do any of the NBC shows, TVG, when I was doing that, a little bit different just because there's a million things going on. But unless I think the favorite is an absolute layup, I'm going to try to beat them. And like I said, maybe my background from the contests sort of preconditioned me to think of things that way, where, you know, the favorite in the grand scheme of things is going to, for the most part, be protection, unless you're, you know, deep in the weeds. But to me, I feel like my job is, if I think there's a horse that's a standout, I think I need to identify that and tell you that. If I think the favorite can be beat, I want to try to make an interesting case that maybe you didn't, or maybe you missed something for a horse at a bigger number. And to your point, even if the horse doesn't win, and I try to put it in writing when I can, at the very least, consider underneath. Because to me, that's just as valuable, if not more, than sitting there saying the 4-5 shot's going to win. That's the pick. Well, that's great. But some people, unless you're just someone that likes to cash tickets, that's fine. And I'm not trying to belittle that. But if you're someone trying to make a bet, I feel like the second question to that would be, okay, well, what do I do underneath? Because 4-5, I'm not that interested in $3.80. I want to find something else there. So for me, if I can make a realistic case, and I get it, realistic cases don't work all the time. Some of these horses run up the track. I mean, it's the nature of the beast. And I also would hope that anyone that plays has played for more than a minute. And you brought up Barry Meadow. Barry Meadow has brought it up in the money management at the racetrack book, going back a number of years now. Strictly from a percentage standpoint, if you know the math that goes into the odds, I would hope that people understand that my 6-1 shot is only going to win 14% of the time. And, you know, the likelihood of them exceeding that it's possible, but it's not an entirely likely scenario. So maybe I'm giving people too much credit, but people that are dyed-in-the-wool players, I would imagine, know that. And I think that's part of the reason that you do hear from certain people that say, you know what, horse didn't win, but ran third. I had the triple X, Y, and Z, as opposed to somebody that goes, well, I mean, you picked the even money favorite and they ran second. Well, you know, what happened there? To me, there's less to gain by picking chalk than there is. And I'm not telling you to go out there and pick 50-1 shots all the time. But if you can make a case for a horse that's either a middling price or even a bomb. I mean, look, I'm the last person that's going to be afraid to say taking a shot with a 20-1 shot or 25-1 shot, and recognizing that statistically, from a probability standpoint, they're going to win between 2 and 4% of the time. Yeah. Not a high probability, but I'll put my neck out there and say, let's give it a go. And I think at the very least, the horse can get a piece of this thing. I think it obviously depends on your audience, and the audience that you have in Europe specifically, I think is a very enlightened. You could correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's an enlightened group of people as far as gambling is concerned. I think they can at least identify, and whether it's with an each way wager or whatever the case may be. I remember I did an ABR thing for the Florida Derby, and Allie Vance was on with us. And going into the McDermott or one of the races, I said current at 45-1. He's my top pick. I think he's got a big chance. I think this is what he's wanted to do all along. And she played him each way and made a decent little payoff on it. And that is the difference between the wagering over there and the wagering here. At best, I'm looking at, okay, he was nosed out not only for the win, but for second. He ran third at 1,000,000 to 1. If I only played him top and bottom and exactas, I got nothing. I got bubkus. And if I played him to show, okay, I'm going to get $9 back or $10 back. Like, it's not great. I think the audience that you're dealing with, this is a very long-winded way of saying this. I think the audience you're dealing with is more enlightened necessarily than we are here in the United States from a gambling standpoint. And I think you're in the right, in my opinion.
Yeah, I felt good about the method I developed for them, and now doing this picking every race in New York 1, 2, 3 gig that I have. I'm like rethinking it a little bit, but it's I definitely take your point about the favorite, and it reminds me of a recent conversation I had with a good friend, but we love to give each other a hard time. Jason Weaver, he gives me a hard time about everything. He is a former very talented rider. Actually rode in California for a minute, worked for Charlie Whittingham back in the day, and just one of the top analysts in all the UK as far as I'm concerned. Great race watcher. Yeah, he's terrific. And so we've worked together a bunch, and we give each other a hard time. And he will. I typically give him a hard time about his pathetic attempt to grow facial hair, which really works, Jason, if somebody sends you this clip. And he's just joking, but he says, with the first race the other night, and I gave out a favorite. He's like, well, folks, we brought him here at great expense, and he gives you the favorite. to your point, people can find the favorites by themselves. So the idea of the 6-1 that's going to run third in an exotic betting culture can still be useful. You know what, folks? I'm not sure we're going to be able to get to too many comments on this show, but if you have an opinion, when you look at picks, what are you looking for? Hit us up on Twitter. I'm at Looms Boldly. He's Bernier_Matt. You can catch us both on the In the Money Network. I'm the host of the In the Money Players podcast. He's the host of the Matt Bernier Show. You can find both on iTunes. Can't even speak, and I'm not even drinking, Matt. Don't know what's going on.
PTF, to be honest, I don't know that I think there's a right or a wrong answer. You know, I can appreciate someone who has the stance that Jonathan does. There have been people that have worked at our prior establishment who believe in pick who you think is going to win. Don't worry about fishing for certain things, especially from a public handicapper standpoint, because people just want winners. So it's blowing up. So see, now we've upset someone. That it
was just NYU looking for money. Go buy.
Oh, well, I mean, that's the best. I mean, that's everybody's looking for money these days. But the idea of I don't know that there's a right or a wrong, to be honest. I think it's just a difference of philosophy and opinion. Yep. And also, are you willing to, and I just went through a brutal stretch. Are you willing to weather the storm? Because it can get real rocky when things aren't going great if you continue down that road. Then I find myself pressing and saying, I'm going to take the favorites in certain spots. They run off the board, and then I'm really feeling like I'm swimming upstream. So I think it's just one of those things. I don't think there's a right or a wrong answer. I think it depends on your philosophy as far as gambling goes.
Betting personality. We talk about it all the time. There's a public handicapping personality, and there's a what you want when you look at somebody else's picks. That's going to be different for different people as well. Folks who have an opinion on the topic, feel free to chime in. Twitter, probably the best way. We also have a little contact section over at inthemoneypodcast.com, and you can reach out to us there. Let's talk about this Gulfstream race. We've got in our Stronach 5 two A's, the two Lime Teeny, who just, made so much sense on projected trip and figures, but not one. I don't think I would have put this one on top in public handicapping terms because I didn't think there was enough between the 2 and the 11 Rags for Britches in terms of figures. And Rags for Britches, 1 would have been 2, would have been a much longer price. And then we threw in some backups. These backups were more JK than me. but we have as B's the 5, 8, and the 13 scratch. So just the 5 and the 8. I don't know when the 13 scratched. I don't know if that means we have an extra. We might have an extra click on.
I was going to say we're load up on Langtini then, baby.
Yeah, that wouldn't be too bad. Wouldn't be too bad to get it that extra time. So what did you think, Matt? Who did you play in the contest in Gulfstream's 9th race as they're getting ready to go to the gate?
So this is one of those interesting things where, just going over what we were just talking about, even from a public standpoint, I would have picked Langtini in here, despite the fact that the horse was going to be odds on, because I just look at it from a number standpoint. The horse makes sense. The middle move in the most recent run makes sense. I thought that sort of interior fraction, things really got hot. And I don't want to discredit the horse for that. I think that's something that's a positive. And on the flip side, you brought up rags for britches. This is a personal issue that I've had probably since day one. I don't trust horses that lose. And at 0 for 15, if the horse wins, I'll say, fine, great, not the end of the world. My only other idea, I threw the 9 in there, believe it or not, first time Lasix, first time going out for Armando de la Cerda coming in from Tampa at a decent price. Now, if from a contest standpoint, I probably should have gone with the 9 over the 2, but I think the 2 is the most likely winner in here. I'm not advocating betting at 3 to 5, but that's where I went. And from a public handicapping standpoint, I would have picked this horse as well.
That's interesting. Yeah, I think I could have found just enough, but we all have our little habits and our little patterns. And
Yeah.
I get in the big picture of life, being anti-career maidens is probably smart.
Also vehemently against union rags on grass.
Oh, that's interesting.
Offensive to me.
Back that up.
Get him out of here. It's one of those things. I think Union Rags is a great sire. I think he's like 3% on turf.
Is that right? I didn't know that.
He's the new Bernardini.
Right. Oh, that's funny.
And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, they're both great racehorses, great sires, but I don't know if any of their progeny are particularly swift on the grass.
No, it's a good point and a good little angle to pay attention to. Where do you get that sire type info? Oh my God, look who's in the waiting room. Oh, he's not just in the waiting room. He's here with us.
Are the glasses new?
Oh, these are. I've been staring at a screen 2 minutes. They're like yellow tinted.
Oh, okay.
Good. So they don't have. There's no prescription. You really look like you should. I mean, you'd have to grow multiple feet, but you should be in the NBA with that getup between the shirt and the glasses. It's.
Hey, what's funny is I think Andy Serling said Chad Brown thinks Union Rags is going to be a good turf sire.
We were just talking. Were you hearing the conversation?
Yeah, I was listening to you guys. Yeah.
I mean, I don't, like I said, I'm not trying to throw shade at the horse himself as a sire, but I mean, the numbers don't lie. It's not working. By the way, the horse will win by 10 in this race.
I think we have just knocked that one right into the winner's circle.
I just wanted to say hi to you guys.
I'm so glad you did. Can you watch this race with us and see if we can get this thing to a pay leg for the first time since we started doing these shows?
Maggie's wrapping up in my ear, and I'm scared they're going to throw it to me next.
Okay, well, hop out. Godspeed. Thank you for
Bye,
doing
good luck.
that.
See you guys.
Cheers.
See you, bud.
People's champion Jonathan Kinchin making an unscheduled cameo. Maybe he'll come. I have a feeling if we hit this bet, he'll come back. So
I love the. I've done it in the past, but not necessarily as someone's getting ready to throw it to me. But I'll be riffing off to somebody else and then I'm like, oh, hang on, wait a minute, I got a job to do here. Hang on, let's get back to what we're actually here for.
Back to business. JK doing a great job on those Fox Sports broadcasts for sure. They do a great job covering, as does, of course, NBC. NBC tomorrow will have coverage of these challenge races from Churchill and just generally, I really am enjoying their racing coverage and the great job they do following the Breeders' Cup Challenge Series throughout the year. And, of course, with the big event itself, I enjoyed getting to throw to them. For Belmont Day, it was kind of nice. I really only had to work a half day because Sky picked up the Belmont coverage, so I was able to sit back and enjoy that.
What were your opinions of the performance from Tis the Law?
I loved it. It's one of those things where it didn't come out that well on the clock, but I just feel like there's so many reasons for him to continue to go forward. The hands he's in, just the way he looks as a racehorse. I feel like coming off that break, it's such a dangerous game that he could have run faster. But I truly believe, had the dynamics of the race been different, that he could have in this case. What was your view?
No, I mean, I'm at a point now where I sound like a broken record, but I don't have anything to knock about him. I love his versatility. I love his agility. I love the hands that he's in with Barkley Tag. And I feel like he and Manny Franco, I know people gave Manny a hard time with that Holy Bull ride, but I feel like they just fit like a glove. Yeah. And I just, the whole situation, I said earlier in the week, I think it's going to take something significant for him not to be 3-year-old champion. And I know it's only, the third week in June, and we've got a lot of racing still to come. But unless he plateaus here, which is definitely something that people brought up. I mean, it's not as though his 3 races as a 3-year-old, they've all basically been the same from a number standpoint.
Yep.
I love the versatility. I love that he can sit and listen to command and do all this as they break from the gate here at Gulfstream for the nightcap. By the way, early nightcap for Gulfstream, 4:30. What's that?
Yeah, only 9 races. What's going on?
I'm with you. I don't have anything to knock about him. I think he's a really, really nice racehorse.
I think it's one of these cases where horsemen and horse players see the world differently. I feel like horse players were completely flabbergasted by those Manny rides. There were 2 different Manny rides where he sort of got buried, and they got in a tussle with one another. It seemed, horse and rider. One of them he won, one of them he didn't win. But I think this is a case where horsemen talk about getting the horse educated. I think he's been educated, and I think that partnership has blossomed. And I think that's one of the reasons why they look so good right now. As for him winning 3-year-old champion, our buddy in California, Honor AP, may have something to say about that. But it's going to be fun to watch this thing play out as they are in the turn at Gulfstream. The favorite, the 11, starting to run. Dramatic Kitten in a good place. Who do you like? We'll do another Pete Aiello line. Who do you like here?
From here, I got to be honest. The Deuce has got to start picking it up here, and I know it's not a great position right now. Got to find a seam, but I don't think the horse is really running. So if that's the case, do you have this 8?
We have the 8 as a backup.
Okay.
We'll have our coverage going forward. That's the 11 in the middle of the track, but there's a lot of work to do.
The 11 is running, though.
Get up, though.
Do you have the 11 or no?
We do have the 11. The 11 is an A. Keep coming. Don't have anything hairy happen with the 3.
There you go.
There we go.
Okay, that's good.
All right.
You might be sitting on something healthy here because that was 6-1.
No.
And now you're 2 deep in the finale?
Oh, yes. We've got the 9 and 6.
And where is this?
That will be back at
Laurel.
Yeah, it'll be back at Laurel.
Laurel, is it race 8?
It must be, right? Let's take a look.
You got 10 minutes to post. By the way, we got 3 minutes to the next race at Belmont Park.
We should probably talk about that. We've got so much action going on here. I'm forgetting where I am.
I was going to say, a million things going on. Rinaldi's your 2-1 favorite right now. There's a horse in here that I really like. His price doesn't really get me going, but I think he's a fascinating sort of case study in handicapping. I picked him in a little write-up I had to do for him. I like Worth a Shot, the 6 horse. He's not the – I don't want to say he's not the most professional thing you've ever seen, but I think he's still learning. He's the kind of horse that when he gets out there by himself, he can get a little bit goofy. He can be a little bit rank, and then he can start kind of looking around. I like the progression he continues to show. And yes, coming off the layoff is no bargain, but I look at this race and I go, from a speed standpoint, I wouldn't be offended if he sat just off, but I don't think there's any other speed in here. I think he goes right to the front and says, come and catch me.
I picked Rinaldi, just thought looked tough based on figures early, late, and overall. Was expecting a nice forward trip as well. Though JY, the 1 competitive figs, I thought might trip out. And I was, fitness was a concern. And then I made a little case for Ghost Giant to run on through the lane and get a little piece more of an underneath.
Now, out of curiosity, if those are the 3 you used, what did you not like about Worth a Shot, the 6?
I'm gonna come back and take a look and tell you that right now. Let's see.
For those of you trying to play the race, 2 minutes to post. I don't know. We have updated leaderboard. The cutoff right now is 21:30. So I mean, it's still now that was before the last race at Gulfstream's gone official. So things will change a little bit here. But if you've got any kind of numbers in the last two races, you're probably still drawing live.
Yeah, I mean, as long as you're on the board, I'd say you've got a chance from there. It is funny though, the Union Rags that we had just been talking about. That was maybe a rare case of the commentator's curse,
without fail,
working to our advantage.
Without fail,
our advantage anyway. It is tough to know with those. I mean, generally speaking, me and trainer stats, the two main uses, knock a favorite, include a long shot. With a horse that looks like good enough like that on numbers, and you're getting a square number, I don't react to the stat there as much as I would in normal circumstances. Is that a similar approach to what you have?
Yeah, I mean, look, it doesn't ever do you any good to knock a long shot, and to me, 6-1 doesn't necessarily fit a long shot. You know, I'm thinking 10 plus, and even 10. I don't know that I would consider 10 a long shot. I would say probably maybe it's closer to 13, north of 13, to me to be considered a long shot. I feel like anything between 6-1 and 12 or so is sort of a middling price. I just, again, I'm as bad as anyone about falling into sort of set patterns. And when I see Union Rags or I see Bernardini on grass, complete toss. When I see Kitten's Joy on dirt, complete toss. I want nothing to do with them because I don't know if it was with you guys or someone else. I mean, the only properly good Kitten's Joy that I can remember on dirt over the past number of years was Chaba. And I mean, Chaba's a Florida bred going way back. So there are just these certain horses and certain sires in particular that I see and I immediately think certain things. I think of, like a Cantaros. I think a Turf Sprint. I'm not saying they can't do other things, but statistically, that is much more the bread and butter. And when I see a sire trying to do something a little bit different than what they're typically accustomed to, an English channel on dirt, but even that's not like a terrible angle, that's when I start to get leery. And I brought up sort of that other piece from you, the 0 for 15. At that point, it's difficult for me to really love a horse. But again, 6-1 and in a multi-race bet as a backup, I certainly am not going to knock that.
We'll see it. We'll see if it ends up paying off in a few minutes. I'm looking at Worth a Shot, and I think I was thinking the horse would get a good trip, but I didn't love like the closing sectionals.
Okay,
I think that's where I was coming from.
That's fair.
But the horse makes absolute. I mean, the horse is logical. It's not like a horse I'd be looking to talk about betting in the UK. Not one I'd be looking to lay. In other words, to take the bets on, but just one I thought had the opportunity against this field to maybe look a little late in the lane, but should be in a good position turning for home. And when you can identify those horses, that's pretty much half the battle. So.
I kind of looked at him, and obviously the layoff is an unknown, but it seems like we have a pretty steady pattern anyway. I'm not somebody that gets all deep into how fast they're working because I don't get to see how they're doing it in the morning. I don't know if it's all within themselves or they're really all out at the very end for the final quarter mile, whatever it may be. With a horse like this, I'm more interested in seeing a steady string of works without any real significant time off. And that's more or less what we have. There's a slight 12-day gap in the middle of May. But since then, it's been a pretty consistent work tab. So I don't know that I can necessarily blame fitness. I feel like it's going to be more a matter of maybe racing fitness is different than a workout, but I don't know that I'm going to sit here and say that the layoff is what gets this horse beat. I think this horse will lose if he resents the early sort of trying to get the horse to relax a little bit from Jose Lezcano, because again, he's a little bit of a nut job out there, or B, somebody else goes with him. The trip doesn't work out. He ends up tired because they dueled early or whatever the case may be. But I don't know that it's going to be because the horse isn't fit and ready for a spot like this.
I think that sounds perfectly reasonable. Before this race at Belmont, I still think I have time. I'm going to run to the washroom for 1 minute.
I got you.
I will return. If you don't mind vamping,
All
looking
good.
at a leaderboard, something, I'll be very close by.
When you come back, we got to talk about the Stephen Foster as well.
Yeah, that's on the list.
So we have.
On my list.
we have an updated leaderboard here. You can see James Fox is now your leader at this point at $48.30. Rob Nowicki at $46.30. James Fox running third. So a very nice day so far for James Fox at $37.10. Tied with John Benke. I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly. The difference there as far as why one is third and one is fourth would have to do with the tiebreaker. Fifth, Jerome Richmond at $36 even. Jeff Long is in sixth at $35.20. Stephen Burdar in seventh at $33.70. John Hoskins at $32.60 is in eighth. Bruce Meyer is at $31.50 in ninth. And your bubble position right now, and I shouldn't say bubble. Technically, you are within the bubble. That is Paul Winandy at $30 even. Michael Jordan. I don't believe it's the Michael Jordan, but that would be a trip if it was. It's not that one. Is the Bubble Boy right now at $26.80, but still drawing very live with 2 races to go. And I would say the same thing for a number of folks that are in and around that number, because you catch a price, there's not much separation in this leaderboard. Let's put it that way. And I think you have the opportunity for some of you that may have a number involved in these last 2 races to get all the money.
You can go from nowhere to the top of the charts.
That's it.
With the way this thing is shaking out, it's been fairly chalky, and it'll be fun to see as we go along. I can't wait to see when we come to the actual Breeders' Cup betting challenge. I'm hoping we're going to have some people who qualified during this time through our show. That's a project we could maybe hit up our buddy Peter Rotundo Jr. to find out. It'd be cool to have people to root for as we go along.
PTF, not to cut you off, you have a minute to post at Laurel.
I've got it up here.
Okay, good. What do we have? What are we rooting for?
We have got 2 runners in here.
Okay.
We're alive to both. We've got a $2 to the 9 and a $1 to the 6.
Okay, I mean, look, you're basically looking at $2,000 either way.
I'll take $2,000.
$2,000 either way. The 9 is coming on in just under $1,000 for $1, and the 6 is in at just about 21.5. So let's get one of these home. You have Marie from Paris and Ifes. Am I pronouncing that right?
I think I went with something very similar to that when I had to pronounce it on the show.
Ifes.
F's, I think I said.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what's correct. But that'll be fun. Hopefully we get our runners will acquit themselves well here at Belmont.
Oh, and by the way, James Fox is JD Fox. JD Fox has a podcast with Andrew Champagne. He's worked in the business for a long time. He just sent me a message on Twitter saying, stop saying James Fox. Hate that I have to use my legal name on that.
That's excellent. Is he associated with the Racing Picks crew as well as is Andrew and yourself?
No, not at the moment, but I was actually on their podcast last week leading into the Belmont. So timely enough that JD is involved with this whole situation, and he's running well. He's got 2 positions right now, so hopefully he can polish off and be live for two entries going into tomorrow afternoon.
Is he split the rest of the way? You can see his pick on there. I'm curious if he has coverage or has his coverage pinned
off at Belmont. He has the 9 and the 5 here, and then in the final race at Belmont, he has the 5 and both.
9 is running like something you're more accustomed to seeing at a rodeo than on the racetrack, but definitely a handful for the rider. We'll see those early exertions look like the horse broke out a bit.
Now, at this point, I'm looking at Worth a Shot compared to what I saw from him at Aqueduct when we last saw him. He is behaving incredibly well. He's not pulling. He's just kind of loping along out there, and the fractions aren't fast. And again, you gotta keep in mind too. He's not he's never going to be a millionaire, or very unlikely to be. But he's only won 5 times. I'm not saying he's going to win this race, but he's more experience now. He's a newly turned 4-year-old. He's at least starting to become a completed project mentally, as opposed to the physical aspects.
You got 2 things working for you. One is the ease with which you're doing, and the other is maybe going this slow will get a real kick in the finish. That I was worried the horse didn't have. Favorite's going to make this thing work, though.
Yeah, I mean, like
this, Rinaldi kind of went up into the race there by himself at this point, and I don't know who's going better between our 2 picks.
I think the 9 is. We'll see if Worth a Shot's got anything left in the tank. He's got a little bit left. Jose's still riding him rather confidently. I mean, start getting busy there, Chief.
This is going to be a serious stretch duel. 6 pulling it out. 6 is pulling it out, I think. So
yeah,
very good pick by you. And I think those two things both proved key there. The lack of fighting and the being able to go slow. Wow, that was a confident ride.
And that's the only thing I'll say. And we brought it up a while back, and it's not meant to be. Again, I would never physically, I would 6'2", 200 pounds, not going to work on the back of a horse. But also B, I don't have the courage to do what these men and women do on a day-to-day basis. But I do look at that and go, unless you really thought you were on a rocket ship, kind of overconfident. I mean, we're dealing with a horse that hadn't run since the beginning of November. That was Breeders' Cup Saturday last year. I mean, it's been a minute. But Jose Lezcano, I think, is still an underrated rider, if that's possible. He's been around for a long time, but specifically on grass. And clearly he fits this horse very well. And I like that we saw a more mature version of Worth a Shot here this afternoon.
Yeah, it was a great pick. And the lovely gray gets it done for Horacio de Paz and Jose Lezcano. I agree about Lezcano. I think he just gets lost because he's in New York and the colony's so strong. I feel like he's out, it goes to California. He's a top 3 or 4 rider. Like,
totally. Couldn't
with the right agent, obviously, but it's an interesting notion. All right, I will not. I'm glad you won that. Rooting for a pick is one thing. When you have financial involvement, that's much more important. My financial involvement is here at Laurel, and I could really use. I'm glad I don't have to pick between the two. I'll just root one of these home. Be nice to hit one of these things for the podcast, for the listeners. We had a few people. Originally we had 2 A's, both of whom scratched, and fortunately a listener alerted me, and then JK and I managed to carve some time out. We it was the kind of thing where the scratches were significant enough that the entire race needed to be re-handicapped, and we ended up with these 2. I guess we're fading the 4 who the market is supporting, but we specifically talked about that horse and decided to leave off. Can
you give me running styles that we're going to be expecting?
I will tell you. Let me look at a little pace map I can pull up right here, and I'll tell you. I guarantee you one of them is the speed, or one of them who we thought was the best speed, because I think that was when we were re-handicapping on the fly. That's how we approached it. It was like, well, we're definitely going to want the best speed, and we're definitely going to want the best closer. And so I'm guessing we've got one of each. Yeah, the 6 looks loose, and the 9 should be 3rd or 4th.
Okay.
And on paper, on paper, the 9 has. There's some others with maybe more some late kick, but I think the idea was that maybe this F's gets the jump and can see them off. And
I feel like I bet on Marie from Paris. Did she go longer?
Good question.
I gotta pull it up. There's a part of me that thinks I bet her in like a mile and a 16th Maryland Red Stakes race one.
It's a cute, memorable name, so I wouldn't be surprised if you're right. The 6 did not take the lead, but is among the leaders and is still in a position to potentially be best of speed here. I'll accept that.
Your position right now, and clearly not who I was thinking of, is going to run. The 9's trying to get involved.
Yeah, 9's running from the back. The 6 is not looking good. I think we're in a little bit of trouble here.
Yeah.
A little bit of trouble here.
Does 9 have any kick in the lane? I mean, it's a long run.
Yeah, it's too much to do, I think. See if the horse runs at all.
Trying to get involved?
Come on.
Come on, 9.
This would be something. It's just not
just running out of
paste. I'd rather it not be the 4.
It's not. It's the 8.
The 8. Oh, that's frustrating. Well, we give it a little run, and it did not. That's right.
Let's see the price. I mean, the 8 was 12-1, so not an easy one to have, I would say.
No, I think we can definitely agree on that.
Unless I just have the morning line. I lied. Let's take a look. The 8 was 7-1, so still no bargain there.
No, it's I'll go back and re-handicap that. When you do something the only thing that gives me a little like lack of confidence is when you end up having to do the work on the fly because of scratches. Yeah. I do worry I'm going to sit down and be like, oh no, I should have seen that.
Totally.
So where are we in our contest? Help me.
We have one race to go. The cutoff point right now is $34.70.
Okay.
There are a number of people in and around the bubble. But I mean, you can see the leaderboard right there. It's definitely a lighter day. You know, we haven't had any kind of crazy prices come in just yet. And again, I guess the difficult thing is it depends how far down you are. Somebody like myself, I don't have enough to get in, I don't believe. So we'll see how all that shakes out. But I would imagine if you're within $10, you got a big chance.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt. There's probably, you know, it's kind of fun the way that you see on the Horseplayers site there. With these pick and praise, you see the picks. So you could. We're not gonna bore you with attempting to do math live on air. We leave that fun to JK, so we can make fun of him for his inability to do so. But you can figure out if you're drawing live and who's drawing live. You can get very close, of course, with pari-mutuel and the fact that the prices could slip.
Give me 2 seconds.
Yeah, it can get mixed up. But yeah, it's actually a lot of new names. My personal theory is we're far enough along now in the pandemic that maybe there's just not quite as many people around on a Friday afternoon. I'm going to see good in that, and hopefully as a sign that we're getting things back on the rails here. Obviously, the momentum of not doing it for a couple of weeks probably cost us a few players as well. We'll figure out what the future of these events is going to be. We love doing them in some way, shape, or form. I'd love to keep them around. I think just the busyness of our schedules is going to keep it from being something we can do every week the way we did. I mean, I think we hit 10 or 12 in a row. It seemed at some point a lot of fun doing these Horseplayer happy hours with you, and just another great way to create a connection between us and the audience. And I know that we've also found a lot of people through the Breeders' Cup Facebook Live page who've come and joined us over at inthemoneypodcast.com and the In the Money Players podcast itself and our whole family of networks. I encourage people, if you enjoy our content, there's several things you can do. Following us on Twitter is an easy one, @LoomsBoldly, @Bernier_Matt, @UTBigHair. Rating and reviewing the shows on iTunes. We have a big iTunes presence. That's super helpful. But really, wherever you get your podcast, if you can download and listen and interact with us, it's just going to help more people find the shows, find these Horseplayer happy hours, and we appreciate it immensely. I love the BU shirt. You know, my good friend who has a new podcast of his own coming to iTunes very soon. I think it's going to be called Games People Play. Bernie Corbett, he's the BU hockey announcer. You ever listen to the BU Terriers play hockey on the radio, Matt? You would have heard my buddy Bernie Corbett.
So I haven't, but someone else who is out in my neck of the woods and a big-time player and a big-time fashionista is Peter Dressens.
Oh, Peter's the greatest, and he's Mr. BU. He knows Bernie personally through me. Yeah. I'm recognized. It was one of those things that's been lucky enough to happen to me once or twice, where people recognize you by the voice.
Yeah,
that happened at our Travers party one year because Peter is a friend. Yeah. So yeah, he was like, "Are you Bernie Corbett?" I can't do the accent.
That was close. It was good. I always love that too. I joke about it that the New York Long Island accent is not that dissimilar from the Boston accent. There's a lot of similarities.
I've mistaken, back in the day, and we're going way back in the day here for a man who's been married since 2004. But I can recall confusing the two, chatting to various females in crowded bars where the noise level was such. It's like, wait, you're from Long Island? No,
yeah. Very, very similar. They're people want to make it out like they're worlds apart. They're not. They're very similar.
Let's talk baseball. Let's talk baseball for a minute. So
yeah, sure.
Okay, first question: can I get excited about this season happening, or is there another shoe that could drop with some touch and go news about the virus in various parts of the country? How confident are you as a baseball fan we're going to get to see this 60-game season played? And therefore, how much studying do I need to be doing? I need to re-handicap all the baseball statistics to do my fantasy leagues if this thing's going to be happening.
I could be totally wrong, and I'm not. I'm going to say something, and I don't want it to be misinterpreted as being sort of, it's certainly not political, but not. I don't want people misinterpreting what I'm saying. The PG, I did the Peach and Stew podcast earlier this week, and if you haven't heard it, good guys.
They do a great job on the show. They've been huge supporters of ours.
Totally.
Let's do a podcast that isn't on the In the Money network. Listen to them.
So I went on with Stu, and we talked about golf, and we talked about baseball. And the commissioner of the PGA Tour said something earlier this week. They're in Hartford, Cromwell, actually, in Connecticut at the Travelers Championship. And the commissioner said, we need to learn to live with this situation as opposed to just sort of trying to ignore it. I feel like it can go either way. If you want to shut everything down until, like many other countries did, I'm certainly not against that. I think that's an entirely plausible play and a smart one. I can also understand using your due diligence and making sure that you're not doing anything silly. And when I say that, I'm talking about folks in South Beach that are just out there and it's 1 million people. I get it. That's probably not a great idea. But if you go outside with your mask and you do certain things and you're taking all of the necessary steps to try to avoid any sort of issues, you go to the grocery store, you do these sort of things. There is still interaction with people, but you have to be smart about it. I think baseball is at a point where if they think they can pull this off, and it sounds like it's going to be in all the home ballparks, which is a little interesting to me. I would have probably assumed it was going to be the Florida, Arizona sort of spring training model. But, if we're just looking at news and stats, Arizona's having some issues right now. So I guess the home ballpark thing is not a terrible scenario. I think it would need to be something very, very dramatic to change. And I mean, it's certainly not trending a good way over the past week or so. But I think it would need to be something like super, super dramatic for baseball to pause, for many of these sports to pause. Basketball has their own set of issues, but they're at least going to be, in theory, inside the bubble down in Orlando at Disney World. Again, I can only go back to the golf situation because golf and NASCAR are really the two sports that have started going again, and they're working. But again, you keep in mind NASCAR is individuals inside of cars. It's not like you have direct contact with people. Golf, to me, is sort of the example, the barometer at this point. It's going. There have been some hiccups, but I think if you're going to try to do any of this, there are going to be hiccups just inherently. It's just one of those things. If you're going to try to give it a go, I wouldn't begrudge folks for saying, we're not doing it, we're going to sit it out. But if you're going to give it a go, I think the reality is there's probably going to be some people that end up testing positive, and hopefully it's on the mild end of things as opposed to the serious end. I'm expecting baseball to come to me, and you're bringing it up from a fantasy standpoint. I think this is going to be complete chaos. I mean, a 60-game season, we've seen good teams go cold and bad teams get hot. And for 60 games, that is a really small sample size to be determining the postseason. So a buddy of mine, he actually was the officiant in my wedding. He's from Southern California, specifically the San Diego area. And he's like, come on, Padres. And I go, I got to be honest with you. I don't think the Pods are all that great. But this is a kind of weird year where if you get a couple of pitchers that come out hot or you get some bats hot, it wouldn't stun me if you get one of the big teams to miss the playoffs entirely, or one of these teams that was on no one's radar to all of a sudden either grab a wild card position or perhaps even win a division. And then from there, again, the postseason is the postseason in baseball, but I could very easily see a very chaotic situation playing out as far as the actual playing of the game.
So many thoughts bouncing in my head, Matt, as you were talking. One is from a safety point of view, I can see it. If we're talking about, the thing that makes me scared about what's coming is like all the indiscriminate traveling. But if you're talking about private charter travel and essentially staying in a bubble, a moving around bubble, maybe it can be done. Maybe if a lot of safety protocols are observed, they can figure out a way to make this work. And then my head goes right back to fantasy. When you're talking about the chaos, I think what it really might do is narrow the gap, especially with pitchers, between, I think all of a sudden, these young arms who you'd be scared of in a 162-game season because of pitch counts and the like, some of these, and I don't have names in my head because I haven't been handicapping it yet. Maybe we'll talk about this again in one format or another as we get closer. But find those young up-and-coming arms that might have been on a pitch count, and all of a sudden, the difference between them and the best pitcher is in the league is going to be like almost nothing. And maybe you're going to be able to get like a huge value on those players as opposed to just getting one of the 3 players that you could have banked on before for, 200 innings and 250 strikeouts. Do you think that might be a way to explore some value in fantasy baseball terms and just general?
Kind of to that point, I mean, I look at a team who I don't think anyone would have made the argument at the beginning of the year that they were a favorite in a division like the NL Central, but I look at a team like the Reds. I go, your pitching staff's actually pretty good as far as your starters are concerned. I've loved Castillo from jump.
Me too.
He looks like baby Pedro to me.
Yeah,
just the way that he moves. He's obviously much bigger as far as size is concerned, but I think there's a tremendous amount there. But you look at let's just use your big 3, and I just pulled them up because we were talking about them the other day. Castillo, Sonny Gray, Trevor Bauer. I mean, Sonny Gray, say what you will. I know Yankee fans have their opinion.
He was much better getting out of New York. He might just
much better out of New York. Trevor Bauer, we know, is a legitimate Cy Young candidate in the American League. I would imagine he'll be just as good. And I know the rules are different now with the DH, the universal situation.
That's right. He won't. That's a great point. The pitchers, not batting. That's going to change the way we analyze things for sure.
I just think it's good. It lends itself, and I'm saying this, and maybe it'll chalk out. But I could see, there's some stud pitchers that don't get out of the gates great. They need a month or 2 to warm up. The problem is you don't really have that luxury in the 60-game sprint. So I'll be very interested to see who performs how and when. And it wouldn't surprise me really if, I'm not suggesting a team like Baltimore, because Baltimore is probably bottom of the barrel right now. But I think of my Red Sox, where at face value, I think they would be a fringe wild card contender for the second wild card in the AL, given their pitching staff. Offensively, they're not going to have any problems. They never were going to have problems with or without Mookie Betts. Pitching, they got a major issue. But in a year like this, if 2 or 3 of those guys catch fire early on, that might be enough to get you in.
Yeah, it's a very smart way of looking at the world. This conversation makes me realize, okay, it's not going to be that hard for me to get back into this. I'm gonna, I'll start grinding. I don't know where I'm going to find the time. I guess early week I can start grinding on baseball statistics. I love the Mets and I love fantasy baseball. I'm not the baseball fan I once was, though. I do have to say, had an absolute blast on Father's Day. I don't know if you ever played any of the tabletop versions, but I got the Negro League Centennial.
Oh, wow.
Prompted Stratomatic. I don't know. This must have been an insane 10-year research project, but some beautiful lunatic went back through box scores and compiled all the stats for like a dozen of the best Negro Leagues teams. And I was playing some Pittsburgh Crawfords against Kansas City Monarchs, making my wife and daughter play the other side. Had so much fun with it. And that was getting me in touch with, I used to be a guy who would get the radio out, pre-internet, the day, we were talking the 1980s, would get the radio out on a dark, clear night and pull in Ernie Harwell from Detroit, or I don't know the name of the Indians caller back then, but it was just the greatest experience to just listening to random baseball games. These days, of course, we're spoiled for choice. It's more than that. I don't want to get into the negatives because we still have 2 more races to discuss, one of which being the Stephen Foster. I'm not the fan I was of like random baseball games, but part of it's always going to be part of me, and we'll set aside some time on air or off to talk baseball
for sure.
Let's get into this here. 5 minutes. They're leaving the paddock at Belmont. Let's put a pin in Belmont, and let's talk Stephen Foster really quick. The other Breeders' Cup win and you're in race on Saturday. JK and I saw this one very similarly. On paper, it looks like this 3-way match, if there is such a thing. That's a contradiction in terms, but you follow, between Tom Data, by my standards, and Owendale. I just kept loving looking at this race, the trip that I saw by my standards getting, and ended up settling with this one, who's just gotten so good as time has gone on, Son of Golden Sense. What do you think in the Stephen Foster, who is going to punch their expenses paid trip to the Breeders' Cup Classic?
I've felt this way for about a month, maybe a month and a half. If I needed to make a pick today for the Breeders' Cup Classic, I would pick By My Standards. I have seen nothing from the horse that I don't like. And to me, I don't want to say a similarity between he and the horse we just spoke about from the Belmont Stakes, Tis the Law, but I saw a number of people early on in his campaign this year suggesting that he was just a fairgrounds horse for course, and that was why he was doing what he was doing. He was getting soft trips. I'm not going to argue with the soft trip situation, but I think he's just a good tactical horse that can kind of work out his own trip. We talk about it all the time. I also think it is so incredibly uncharitable to call him a fairgrounds horse for course when you consider, look at his overall body of work. He's run at Oaklawn and Churchill twice. The 2 times at Churchill were sloppy sealed tracks. One of them was the Kentucky Derby, which preceded, a 9-month, 10-month layoff. Draw a line through that. The other was his career debut going 6.5, and he ran second that day. Too short, and he ran just fine. I don't hold that against him. His only other trip away from the fairgrounds, he won the Oaklawn handicap by almost 2 lengths, and I thought he was just basically, I thought he was much the best in there. I look at him and say, it's not a matter of discrediting Tom's d'Etat. I think he's a really nice horse. I think he's the kind of horse we should all be rooting for because he has clearly gone through some physical things and he's still firing. He doesn't get out a ton, but when he does, and look, Alstall got him good last year and they kept rolling on with him. I think he's a very, very talented racehorse. I just can't get past the fact that I think By My Standards still is disrespected. And maybe I'll look silly tomorrow afternoon after the race is over. Not only do I have a rather healthy future bet on him to win the Breeders' Cup Classic, but I think genuinely, if I needed to make a pick today, including the 3-year-olds, including everyone else, I'd pick By My Standards.
I like it. We'll see about the distance. That'll be my one pause, but I assume you're getting compensated in price. But I
got him at 40 to 1.
Oh, that's good. That's good. He's a beast at the 9, and it wouldn't surprise me if he could get the one more panel. They in modern racing they talk about looking for horses that can get the mile and an eighth and can be by on blood and then can be trained to get that extra distance. We see it a lot, and I agree. I think this is the type of horse. American Pharoah, the poster child for this. Certain wise guy trip handicappers want to say, oh, he gets a perfect trip. Oh, he gets a perfect trip. Gets a perfect trip because he makes his own trip. You get more perfect trips in a Ferrari than a Yugo. Yes. And that's where I stand on that. You, me, and JK going for By My Standards. It's a lot of weight, but I think he could justify it, and he won't be the favorite, which I like. 1 minute at Belmont, Matt. We should talk about this race. I chalked out again. Just thought mentality could be loose looking at the pace figures. And I like this good-looking work tab with the 2 bullets in the holster. And for my second and third picks on the unnamed ADW, I went with number 1, Hannah's Smile, who tried unsuccessfully to attend that hot pace. First off the layoff, I thought could go better this time. Nice races to run back to. And Kid is Frosty making the 4-year-old debut for an outfit that just couldn't be hotter at the moment. What did you think to wrap things up, to wrap up this Horseplayers happy hour at Belmont Park in their 8th race today?
I liked her off the layoff last time out, Hannah's Smile, and you're right, she was close to the pace. My concern going into that race was, perhaps I'll find out that the open N2X company is going to be a little bit too steep. Maybe it's the layoff, but to be honest, she's fired fresh in the past. So I didn't know if I wanted to use that entirely as an excuse. I want to give her another look in here, though. I know it's Stakes Company, but it's New York bred company. We're not dealing with the open ranks. And I think you can almost make the argument that this is a lateral move. I know this is technically a stakes race, but again, given that it's restricted to New York breds, there's not a ton of speed in here. She can lay closer to the pace than necessarily maybe we've seen in some of these other races from her. I like the idea that second off the bench from Michelle Nevin's barn, I think she's going to take a step forward here. And I do respect the 5 horse. I think mentality is going to be the speed in here, but I don't think there's that much a difference between the 2. And I thought that Hannah Smile would be a better price. I chose to go with her. Win, lose, or draw. It's not going to be enough to get me into the contest tomorrow. But I am hoping that she runs well here and can get the job done.
You, of course, already have one Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge seed. How seriously are you pursuing a second?
I frankly not super serious. I've been fortunate enough a couple times through these Friday qualifiers to get in to a proper BC qualifier the next day. I think it's been 2 or 3 other times. I had actually one time a few weeks ago that I threatened and just kind of flattened out at the end. I think I ran 15th or something like that. But it's, put it this way, it's not a major priority for me to grab a second one. It would be nice, and if it happens, I'm certainly not going to complain. But it's not on the priority list of making sure I do that. I'm going to be keeping an eye on some of these other contests coming up, perhaps trying to play in some of those. I know now Keeneland, they're offering an online contest. I believe it's through Express Bet.
Yep.
So that's one that I may try to finagle my way into. There are other contests as well, but specifically, I'm kind of at a point now too where I actually did okay in one of the free NHC qualifiers the other day. I think I finished 100, so I got a decent amount of points out of it. Typically, I usually wait till the bitter end to try to get involved. Maybe I try to get involved a little bit more now, but every year, you said it leading at the top of this. The BC for me is the end all be all contest wise. I love the NHC. I owe so much to the NHC, but to me, the BC is the cream of the crop. And that's my goal every year. And unfortunately, I haven't been able to qualify the past few years. And I was just so happy to get it out of the way early this year and not think twice about it.
And a contest you've had success in, running seventh back in 2015. How was my math there?
14.
Oh, it was 14. It was right
14, yes.
It was right around when we started the show. That's right. It wasn't the Faro year at Keeneland. I could have pulled that if my brain wasn't so tired. I'm glad you mentioned Keeneland. July 11th, you could play on TVG as well for that one. $3,000. It's going to be a lot of fun. Slightly different rules, very player friendly. It's the kind of thing that it's a good enough opportunity. You can win Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge seats. Even if you aren't somebody who wants to put that money up yourself, look to find a partner and do it. First time ever, it's grade 1 gamble, an opportunity to play online, win Breeders' Cup seats, and you can play a couple places online, including a TVG. They are in the gate for the Hessenites, and they are off. And we'll see if the 5 makes the top.
PTF, 2 things. Correct me if I'm wrong. Wasn't Hessenite a long-distance turf runner?
That sounds right, actually.
And this is a 6. Again, I'll never understand that. 6 turf race named after her. And also, more of a philosophical question, and I guess as the race is going on, folks can see what's happening. Do you think this is going to be the new norm for live money contests, at least affording the opportunity to play online as opposed to live?
I hope so. I hope that we see – I love the trend of big AWs working together. Anytime we can see important racing entities working together, it warms my heart. And I hope that these politics of, we've got a lot of ideas that could really benefit from ADWs working together. And mentality, the 4 to 5 favorite looked to be cracking for a second, but is now finding more down at the rail and pulling.
Come on, Hannah.
Right here, Hannah is. I think Hannah thinks that Hannah has done enough. Hopefully, we'll hang. Let's see if we can hang in second for the exactly. Yes.
All right.
I thought the favorite was in big trouble there for half a second. I don't know if that was you're better at seeing this than me. Was it a lead change, or was it just the rider was playing a little bit of possum there for a second?
No, I think this is 2 in a row that we've seen very confident rides where it looks like the horses are in deep water and the riders are supremely confident and they've got a little extra left in the tank. Dylan Davis on this one and Manny Franco, I believe. No, I'm sorry, Jose Lescano. We were just speaking about
right
in the run prior. So it's also something to keep in mind. Let me just take another quick look. This turf is playing blistering fast.
Yeah, that's quick for these, isn't it? 108-3.
8-3, and the mile for the N2X runners in that prior start was 34-2. I mean,
we had rain one night. Well, I don't know that's been the same in New York, but in Saratoga we had rain one night, but it's been dry as a bone.
Yeah, I feel like the turf is playing exceptionally quick.
All right, we're getting ready to wrap things up here. We will, of course, wait and give you one more leaderboard. First time we've done one of these, Matt, where I had hours of work to do afterwards. And I'm not saying that to complain. I'm saying that's a good thing. That means business is picking up, and the world is at least trending back in some kind of direction. How about you? What does the rest of your weekend hold?
This weekend is relatively light. You can find some more selections and videos over on racingpicks.com. Next week, I think, is pretty quiet. And I'm starting to had a conversation yesterday with the folks down at NBC. I think my first show, tentative, I'm not going to say it, but I think we at least have some dates lined up in case something doesn't end up shaking out. And who knows, maybe it'll actually be on site because there have been whispers about certain tracks and certain
I was going to ask you about that. If we've heard the plans for Monmouth certainly to have spectators and other tracks potentially opening up more extensively for media. Would you drive or fly if you had an engagement like that?
In all likelihood, I would probably drive, or a combination of a train and drive, just based on where I am in the Northeast. And if there is some sort of a Saratoga situation, that's an easy drive for me. Stop over at my parents' house. It's kind of the halfway point. So, I'll be very curious to see how everything shakes out going forward. But
it's great to see you up here for a nice socially distanced gathering at some point this summer. That would be fabulous. Fantastic news for me. I'm Sky Sports tomorrow. Travel day Sunday. We're going to go to Maine. We're going to
where?
Western Maine. We're going to be in oh my goodness, Muggsy, the handicapping Labrador, almost just took out the internet, but she did not. She's decided to get off the couch. She's pretty smart. She knows it's dinner time, so she's getting ready.
Come on, Dad.
We're gonna get I swear I'm gonna get a better office setup soon. Now she is sniffing the podcast mixing board. Actually, Muggs, if you step on one of those colored buttons, we may hear some music play. You can hear her lapping up her water in the background. Good girl. She's been there since day one. Oh no! Don't drill on the mixing board.
In the midst of PTF trying to make sure Muggs doesn't destroy the soundboard. There's your final leaderboard right there. Your winner, Rob Nowicki at 6480.
Excellent. Let's we'll run them down. JD Fox, is that what we're going to for
JD Fox with a couple?
Fox, 2 in the top 10, 2nd and 7th. Good day at the office for JD Fox. Jeff Long 3rd, John Hoskins 4th, Stephen Burdar, not Bradar, in 5th. 6th is Jerome Richmond. 8th, John Benke. 9th, Eric Pinheiro from New York City. Good to see that name up there. 10th, Paul Winandi. And I think we said it was 10, right?
10, top 10.
Michael Jordan ends up being the bubble boy. Apologies to you, Michael. I don't think the casinos are open in Atlantic City for you to cause trouble tonight, but we'll hopefully see you in more tournaments. It's good to see the mix of new blood and familiar names up there. And this has been great fun, Matt. I just loved hanging out with you this whole time, especially today. Great chatting. And we'll see. We'll figure out what the future of these shows is, and we'll make some sort of announcement. I know they're going to stick around in some way, shape, or form at the very least. We'll see to it. At that, we'll hit the thank yous. We'll start with thanking everybody who's made these shows so much fun and such a success, including those who listen via podcast. We'll give a special shout out to Jamal Barnett, who told me that part of his Friday night handicapping ritual, Matt, is listening back to these shows while he does his work. That was really very cool to hear. Our friends at Horseplayers, our friends at the Breeders' Cup, our friends at the Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation, and Thoroughbred Aftercare Alliance. JK for taking a minute to pop in. Appreciate that as well. Special shout out to Peter Rotundo Jr., who's really the man behind these shows. He's been a guest a few times, but influential in making everything happen. That's all we got. These shows have been a production of, I forgot a pretty important guy. Producer Craig, DJ Unstable himself, doing all kinds of work, pushing all the right buttons. This show has been a production of In the Money Media and the Breeders' Cup. Our business manager is Drew Coatney. Our chief creative officer is Jonathan Kinchin. I'm Peter Thomas Fornatel. May you win all your photos.